Hello, I'm Rob Perez.
Grassroots coach Manisha Taylor.
Christian Carambeu.
Matt Hodgson, director of the 4-year plan.
I'm Rob Lusher.
Dave McLaughlin.
Andy Copeland from the Glemnet Southern Amateur League.
Philip Wick, I'm CEO of 14.
Former chairman of Ibis FC.
Chairman of Alexandra Park FC.
And you're watching
Pitch Talk.
Pitch Talk.
the only place to get your Monday night footballing fix.
The pitch is where we eat.
The pitch is where we sleep.
And the pitch is where we talk. Make sure you join the revolution, the football revolution.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, straight shooting LJA, the G-Man, and Jazzy Fizzle proudly, usually bring you a Monday night footballing fix. But right now, it's time for the football interview series that gets behind those doing good things in football, and not in that way either. But it's one of them ones. We like to delve deep and see what makes people tick in a positive way, of course. But I would like to say, on behalf of myself and my two co-hosts, we are here with a truly inspirational individual by the name of Sohail Rehman, the first wheelchair-bound, fully qualified football coach. And you know what? I'm proud to sit here with a man who is breaking down barriers on a daily basis. Sohail, what I say? How you doing, man?
I'm all right.
How you doing?
I'm good, thanks.
What have you been, let us know. What have you been up to recently?
Just recently we've started doing a few coaching sessions. I love being out there on a weekend in the cold weather where people find that funny, but I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I do it.
The beginning is where we usually start. And would you say that's the most logical place to start? The beginning and then come up to the present? Or would you rather start backwards?
I'll start at the beginning because I think that journey was really, that was the most emotional journey of my life. For me, the start was one of these things where I was involved, like even though I suffered from SMA, I was always involved in everything that was going on with cousins, with friends, everything, football, computer games, there was nothing different. Didn't feel like I was treated differently by anyone. So whatever I did with everyone in the community and everything like that. So I never felt like I was isolated or I was in a place where I needed someone to come and help me and something like that, no. So to be fair, the beginning wasn't so bad for me at the start because I felt, as funny as it sounds, I felt normal, that's how I felt.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel anything different at that time.
Yeah.
It was probably getting to the teenage years where everything really, that's around the time where everything changed, and it was like a dramatic change as well.
You know what? I wanted to ask you the opening question I actually want to ask you is, who is Sohail Rehman, and what does he stand for, and what makes you tick?
Well, basically, who is Sohail Rehman? That's a hard question. But to be honest, like I just want to be involved in football, and I'll be honest with you, like for me, everything I do is football. Like the only piece I ever got, being at that age where I did struggle or anything, was 90 minutes of watching a game. So football is a major part of who I am, and it will always be like one of the things is I will never, even though people will accept me, I will never fit into the community as much as I want if it wasn't for football, because football is one of these games where everyone actually does come together. As one is not treated any differently. So football is a major part of who I am, really.
Okay. Do you have any idols or role models that you look up to, whether it be in or out of football?
Out of football, it'd be Vince Lombardi. Vince Lombardi was one of these people that when I went back and just went on his life and I looked at his life, and some of his quotes are powerful, really powerful quotes. And if you want to go into sport and you look at that kind of role model, and not only him, there was people like Jock Stein, Sir Matt Busby, Bill Shankly, these great managers, really what they did at their clubs was unbelievable. Like Bill Shankly at Liverpool, he really did everything. Like he set that off, and then Matt Busby was the first manager to take an English club to Europe and kind of conquer Europe. So these managers and Vince Lombardi out of football are really my idols, really do.
Was Vince Lombardi the coach who said, I think it was fatigue makes cowards of us all? I think it was, I was trying to think of a Lombardi quote.
Practice doesn't make perfect, only perfect practice makes perfect, or something like that. So there's some.
That's not bad. That's not bad, actually. Yeah, that's kind of one to think about. Who initially inspired your interest in football?
I always had it, because one of the things you always have banter about football, so I was always involved in that banter. So like I would like kind of get loose in that banter, and kind of that was my moment, you know what I mean, where I could actually give as good as I got. Like that was the kind of thing. But I think once I went to college and I had an interview for computers, so I kind of got late for the interview. So I'm waiting for I was just waiting in the waiting area, and a sports teacher at that time at the college just came up, and he was just chatting about sports to someone else. And I kind of thought, I've got to get involved in this. This is something I can get involved in. So I was just kind of got over and started talking to him about football. And he said, you know so much about football, why don't you do something in sport? And my answer to him, he kind of found it laughable, because he was like, I said to him, I'm not allowed. And he kind of looked at me as if to say, what do you mean you're not allowed? I was like, no, I'm not allowed. And he was like, I'll put you on a 6-week course and we'll see where it goes. So Andy Gudgeon was really the driving force to get me into sport, really, and into football.
That's quite an interesting kind of way of getting in, because you mentioned earlier about football kind of helping that acceptance. Would you say that football is kind of that football is a release for kind of frustrations, tensions?
Well, it's basically a hobby. That's what it was. It was playing FIFA, but just having banter with the lads. It was one of them things where I would know as much about it as someone else. And on a lot of stuff that didn't normally happen. So it was like, that was like my kind of moment. So whenever a football topic was up, even in school, as soon as the teacher started something about football, it was like, I can get involved in this. So that's the kind of thing it was. So I think it was that kind of release. It was like I say to a lot of people now, that when watching a 90-minute game, that was the only time I kind of felt like, all right, I'm involved with everyone else in this. I'm in the same boat kind of thing. So football was actually the release.
No, that's great stuff. That is great stuff. In terms of getting into football, how did you play in school?
I played up to the age of 12, so in the park in school with friends, and a lot of them had to adapt the game at times. Some didn't want to, but it was one of these things that if I was involved in a game, it would kind of have to be adapted, and that would happen sometimes, but sometimes it wouldn't happen. So it was one of these things I would get involved in it as much as I could. I wouldn't really go to the point where I would know, like, I would put myself in a position where I would get hurt or anything like that. So it wasn't that extreme, but as much as I could, I did. And to be fair, some of the people I had around me, they did adapt the game. And football's a hard game to adapt as well. You don't want to adapt really, because when you're playing football, it's like, you might be playing with your brother or anyone, but it's like, I'm taking you out once the it's like one of these things. So for them to adapt the game for me at the time, like that was really a great moment.
Is that kind of another way that you felt that football has been inclusive, that not even just the game, but the people around it have been?
That's one of the things you don't. It's one of these things that you don't kind of see, like everyone. You see him play and you think, oh, I can't do that. So even though they want me to play, what am I going to do? I'm going to stand on the sideline. I'm going to ref. Or I don't want to ref. I want to actually. So it's one of these things, like the funny story. Like, but most of the people I played with did play it with each other, play the ball through, and they'd go around the keeper and they'd roll it across so I could tap it in. So they let me have that moment. And it was one of these things that he's done all the hard work, but let me have the moment. So I think that's one of the things with the people that were around me at the time were like, that's his moment, so let's let him have that moment. And I would go home thinking I scored a hat-trick, but it was a hat-trick from 6 yards.
They all count. Doesn't matter how they go in, they all count. Do you remember your first match?
First match? Is that going to or just playing?
Playing. And going to as well, we'll take that one too.
Playing was probably in the streets with the jumpers for goalposts, that kind of thing. So it was probably that. And it was one of these things where I can actually remember one at a sports centre as well, where I was in goal. And I was kind of this big, so all the lads were big, they were about 17, 18-year-old lads, and I'm like 11. And one of the family members just came up and said, you go in goal, because he was hurt. And I was looking at the goal and thinking, the goal's quite big. That was what kind of reaction was. And he came 1-on-1 and he took a shot and he decided not to put power in it, because obviously he thought he was going to beat me anyway. And I kind of saved it, and that was my kind of moment. That was That was like, man, next time you should.
It's like, you should have levered it. You should have levered it.
That's basically what it was. So then I kind of saved that, and that was actually the first moment, football game, playing-wise, I remember. Match-wise, I went to a Bradford City Liverpool game.
Oh, okay.
At Valley Parade in Bradford, and that was organised by the school. So that was a great moment. And the seat I was sitting at, all the Liverpool players were like going past, and the Bradford City players were like Owen, Gerrard, McAllister.
Yeah.
So that was like really like, wow. So that was the first game. I think McAllister scored 2. He scored a free kick that game.
Yeah. At least it wasn't the one where during the season we ended up about 7th and Bradford beat us 1-0 on the last day to stay up. At least it wasn't that game. That brings back bad memories. For a number of reasons, that brings back bad memories. Not less that green shirt. Yeah.
Yeah, that green shirt. I remember that kid.
Bad memories on that with the stripe over it. Yeah. Ironically enough, I think it was from about that time we had TT Camera, who recently has been claiming a bit of Gerrard's thunder recently. So it's been a bit crazy. What was your favourite position to play as a youngster?
Probably every young kid wants to play strike, so I don't think there's going to be any other fair position. You know what I mean? They'd rather leave the goal open for the other team and just play strike themselves. So I think that's the position when you're young, and especially the era that I grew up in. It was Henri, Van Nistelrooy. It was like Owen as well. So it was one of these eras where if you're not scoring goals, no one's good to you. You know what I mean? It's like scores in that era, even though he was such a great player. You couldn't really see it when you were young. You were seeing Henri in all the headlines in the newspapers, picking up golden boots, and it was like Henri, Van Nistelrooy era. So probably strike was the position when I was young.
Speaking of boots, actually, you mentioned that of golden boots. What was your first pair of boots?
First pair of boots, I can't remember. It was a Total 90. Was it Nike ones?
Oh my word, yeah.
Do you remember them?
Yeah. Total 90s have been around. They've been around for a bit, yeah.
Yeah, Total 90 Nike ones. It was everyone actually got them. To be fair, it was like one of these things that I think it got abused completely. The Total 90 boots, but it was some purple ones with like silver kind. I think
he's flash. He's flash. Purple boots. He's flash. I was gonna say, you've always got to remember the purple boots.
That's the thing.
Oh man. Speaking of Ronaldo, what team do you support?
Support Man United. I don't think you absolutely.
I'm not gonna say anything. You're our guest, so I'm not gonna rib United. But it's one of them was Jesse Fizzle behind the camera is happy that I'm not gonna rib Man United. But no. The temptation is there. The temptation really is there. But I won't. You're also a part of the Manchester United Disabled Supporters Association, aren't you?
Yeah, well, that basically came up. I wanted to go to games. I was a massive fan, and there was no way. I would always ring the club and say I want to buy tickets, and they'd be like, "There's a completely different association that deals with that," and I could never get through to them. So when I did get through to them, they basically told them a bit about me. They were really interested in me coming to games and stuff. So they kind of sent me some application forms over. I filled them in. And then I became part of the Disabled Supporters Association quite late. It was 2007 when Ronaldo had his big year. I think it was that year. And I got taken out it was a FA Cup replay. I think it was against Middlesbrough when Ronaldo scored a penalty. I think I remember it in front of the Sheffield Wednesday. So that was my first game with them. And then since then, I didn't miss much games. I used to probably only miss 2 games a season after that.
That is
after
pretty
that, I kind of started you obviously get to know the people that run it and stuff like that. So that was that was like, even just getting to that point where you could watch games live at Old Trafford, it was like, wow.
Yeah. I mean, it is really good to see that you're still, again, with football being inclusive. That's already kind of becoming an underlying thing. I mean, it's really good to see that the club has kind of embraced that.
A lot of clubs do it now as well. I think probably in the early 2000s you probably didn't get that, but right now there's a lot of clubs that, even with the smaller clubs, they try to have as much disabled seats as they can. So I think a lot of clubs are trying that now as well. It's one of these things they did overlook for a long time, and especially with the standing seats as well, with the standing areas before. So it's one of these things that was always overlooked, but now there's a lot. Probably every stadium nearly got disabled seats there for wheelchair users.
Have you during your time watching football? How much have you seen the facilities for disabled people improve? Have they improved leaps and bounds, or just a bit, or?
Leaps and bounds, really, especially with I can speak Manchester United firsthand, because when I went there at the start, it was 80 people you would get, 80 wheelchair users. Now there's over 200, so it just shows the kind of improvement. And it's one of these things that they don't just give you any seats as well. It's not like they put you in a corner or anything. You're behind the goal across the Stretford end, and that's like that's the best position to watch a game from. And even Tottenham, I was watching a Spurs game and I saw on the corner flag where they take the corners, all the wheelchair users there, and I was thinking that's not a bad sight to watch. I was thinking I got to get down to the stadium and kind of watch a game from there. But that kind of area they give you, they don't kind of put you in a corner where it's difficult for you to see. They always put you in a place that you will enjoy the game in, and it's probably the perfect place to watch a game as well.
Well, you know, I want to kind of slightly come off the beaten track in terms of questions. It's again over how important do you think it is for clubs to embrace disabled people in terms of helping them be able to watch matches, helping them be able to afford it as well? Because obviously with carers and things like that, there are costs. I'm assuming that there are costs involved. So
there's massive costs. With Man United, they did a basis that was you pay a £29 membership a year, and the tickets are free to every game. And you just kind of call the day before, and if you get it, you get it. And it's like everyone has a call-in period, and whoever gets through gets tickets. So on the money side of things, they did kind of understand. Another thing is it's a confidence thing as well. If a lot of disabled people can get out to football games or any kind of events, it gives them great confidence as well. And I think that's one of the issues with a lot of people that do suffer from disability. The confidence is really low. And football, and especially going to football matches, is a way of getting them really out there and to communicate with different people and make friends as well. And that's what it's all about, really.
disability and coaching is our next segment. How big a turning point in your life was it when you were diagnosed with spinal muscular atrophy?
It's a massive turning point. It was like, it was one of these things where going in and seeing specialists and them telling you you're going to become wheelchair bound in the next 2 years. It's one of these things where it's like, what I do is not going to be the same from now on. So you kind of think, you go to sleep, and I think it was that the last step I took, and it gets to that point, and you're thinking, what if I wake up in the morning and I can't walk? And that's how serious it gets. And it was one of these things that, as I said to a lot of people, it's not about just going out there and thinking you can be a footballer or anything like that, but it's about emulating what you see on the TV and doing it in the park with your friends and pretending you're Ronaldo, pretending you're a Messi. But when that gets taken away from you and it's not your own choice, that really does hurt. So that it was a really difficult period, them 3-4 years after it happened.
I mean, how did you get through it? Did you have a good family support structure? Obviously, we've got your brother off camera. But how did?
No, but family support was there. It was like the family support was great. Like even like it was one of these things. It wasn't even the cousins and everything. It wasn't a massive shock to them because they probably all communicated with each other and kind of knew about it. So I wasn't getting treated any different. I was silver spoon, you can say. I was kind of getting all the treatment I wanted at that time. Yeah. But it was like, this is all great, but I want football, and that's not going to happen. And I think the family support was great. It did help me at times, but like I said to everyone, it's like them 90 minutes were like, that was like the relief. That was like, yeah, I'll just watch football, and I kind of enjoyed it. And then after them 9 minutes, I think again, I can't do what they did. And it's like, it kind of differs. Like sometimes you feel like you're okay and you're happy, and sometimes you think, oh no, what's happened? So it's one of these things that it was a hard adjustment. The adjustment was massively hard. Like using a wheelchair is difficult as well. And it's like I would, right at the start when they give me the wheelchair, they try to make it sound as if like it was an exciting thing. And me being young, they thought that I might get it, but it was straight away I knew that it was one of these things that's the first kind of sign to other things, and I kind of figured that out early as well. So it's just the normal stuff like getting out of bed and stuff like that. It's just like everything completely changed, and you can kind of feel yourself getting weaker as well, and you think to yourself in your head, I'm a bit weaker than I was 2 months ago. And but I think the support was great that I had, and it did help me a lot. Like, because there is a lot of people that in that kind of position that get suicidal even. So if they don't have the right support, I had great support to the point where I was never ever like that. It was one of these things where I was always fine, and I was always involved in everything even after that, and like contacting the Disabled Supporters Association, all that happened afterwards. So the support was unbelievable.
Would you say support is the most important thing in terms of dealing with the adjustment?
The support is massive, and it's not too much support as well. There's a big difference to that as well. If you start giving too much support, the person that's wheelchair bound or the person that suffers from the disability will start thinking to themselves, there must be a massive change here. So you got to kind of let them try stuff like picking up stuff themselves and just basic stuff. If they want to stand, let them stand. If they want to walk a few steps, let them walk a few steps. But always be there to support them afterwards. Like even if they took 2 steps, like I used to take 2-3 steps, and my mum or my dad would turn around and say to me, well done, and it would be like a tap on my back kind of thing. So I would never feel as if, I should have not tried that, or that was a bit too much. So the support is a massive part, but it's not too much support as well. And it's kind of the parent has to know the kid and kind of has to know when to give support and when not to. So it's one of them things, but I think support is a major part.
When were you diagnosed with spinal muscular atrophy in terms of age, and can you tell us a bit about the condition?
Well, I was around 2 and knew about it, but there's 3 different types of spinal muscular, and I suffered from type 3, which is not so bad, so I would still be fine. But I was diagnosed with it at 2, but it wasn't to the point where I would be wheelchair bound or anything like that. So I was fine up to the teen. When I got to the teenage years, they never really thought it would go to that limit where I would be wheelchair bound, but it was one of these things that I was always told it wouldn't get to that point. Like, you carry on walking the way you're walking. I did walk with a bit of a limp, but that's all that'll happen. So then when I went to 13, and then it was kind of it was just a bang. It was just straight in your face, like, and it was like, they get paid, they have to do it, that's their job. And that I kind of understand that now, but back then I was thinking, how can you be so cold and kind of say something like that?
Yeah.
But they had to tell me because there was no better time to tell me. If they left it and letting me figure it out myself down the line after all the tests and stuff and let me figure it out, then obviously I would get to the point where I would be thinking, what's going on here? So it was one of these things I had to do, but I was diagnosed with it early, but around 13 was really when it really hit. I was like, you're going to become wheelchair bound.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of the condition itself, you said that there's 3 types. What exactly do you know exactly what each type kind of entails, just for anyone who potentially might?
Well, with my type 3, I walked obviously with a bit of a limp. I would have aches and pains in my legs and stuff. Sometimes I would have tighten my joints would tighten and stuff like that. But I don't really know what type 2 contains, but with type 1, you're born wheelchair bound. You have a lot less movement in your arms. Some type 1 people that suffer from type 1 can't speak as well. So type 1 is really a severe type, but type 2, I don't know much about type 2, but type 1 is really severe. But type 3, I was like, my upper body strength was fine, everything like that, just had a bit of a limp. And it's difficult as well, because it's like, they put me in these kind of categories, type 3, type 2, type 1, and you're like, it's a massive difference. And if you go to someone and you just said type 3 or type 2 or type 1, they think, okay. But it's such a massive difference. Each category is like, so that's one of the things like I looked at when I was growing up as well. Like once I did become wheelchair bound, it was one of these things where, what if there's someone out there that suffers from type 1? And it kind of makes you feel for them as well. And you think to yourself, I haven't got it all that bad. And I think you do understand it a bit more when you realise that other people suffer from a more severe type of it.
I mean, are there a lot of support groups out there, and do you know of any that you would like to give a shout out to?
There is a lot of support groups out there. Most of the support groups are provided by your local hospitals and stuff. They just kind of, because there's a lot of local support. David Beckham's got a charity for SMA, so like he's one of the people that does quite a lot, and his charity you can contact for whether it's wheelchairs, Zimmer frames, splints on your legs, stuff like that. So there is quite a lot of charities out there that help. There's also a lot of support, but it's one of these, and physio plays, with SMA, physio plays a major part. I think physio is probably the biggest role, where it's one of these things, that's the person you kind of think, when you're a kid, you kind of think it's going to fix you, that's what you kind of think. So I think the physio is the major support as well. But there is a lot of support groups out there, and I think normally the local hospitals kind of provide you into the support groups. That's
good to know, actually. switching just slightly, what does it mean to you to have the accolade and the honour of being the first fully qualified wheelchair-bound / disabled football coach?
Well, honestly, a lot of people say, oh, you must be proud of it. Yeah, I am proud of it, but it hurts quite a lot because I would have wanted a path to follow. And I would have wanted someone there because I found it really difficult to get into football. And it's one of these things that if someone had already done it, I would have thought, yeah, there's a path there, I can take that path and it might lead me somewhere.
Yeah.
But it's one of these things where I always thought in my head, why hasn't someone tried it? There must be a reason no one's tried it. And that's what you kind of think. So I think it's one of these things, yeah, it's an absolute privilege and it's an honour to kind of have the accolade, but it's also one of these things where at times it does hurt when you kind of think, no one actually tried it. Why didn't they try it? And once you actually take part in it, you kind of notice there are some certain aspects and some reasons why someone won't try it. But it's one of these things like I want to get out there and kind of talk to people with SMA that suffer and are wheelchair bound to get into sport because it's not as hard as everyone thinks it is. Like there are times where it's difficult, but especially with football coaching, you can be involved in it. Wheelchair users can be involved in football, and that's really the message I really want to get out there. Really.
I was going to say, what kind of advice would you give to anyone who is wheelchair bound trying to get into football after what you've been through?
Yeah, it's basically you're going to find it hard. The first 2 years you're going to find it very difficult because what happens over the first 2 years is you do the normal assessments, the written assessments, you're fine doing them, and then you get onto the physical assessments, and it's one of these things where it's the coach or whoever's teaching you at the time will come over and say to you, someone else is going to do your part. You just kind of tell them how you want it to be done. And I know with a lot of wheelchair users, when you don't have that confidence issue, it's like one of these things where you kind of think in your head, will he try as hard for me as he would for himself? And that plays a major part because you're kind of thinking to yourself, I'm giving someone else the power to kind of do this assessment for me. But the major part of going into football coaching, if you are a wheelchair user, is trust. Trust plays a major part because you have to trust a lot of people along the way. And you got to, once you've done it, you realize that the people will always help you and they're always looking out for you, the people, because they understand. But it's one of these things that trust. If you don't have no trust and you can't trust the people to help you and take part in some of the assessments, then it's a real struggle. And the first 2 years are a struggle because you have to build that trust. And you have to kind of pick the person in the classroom that you think is going to be the best to do it for you. And you can't really get that over a day or two. Or it's one of these things. So trust is a major part of it. But if you get through the first year or two, after that you kind of think, yeah, I've built my trust now and I can kind of carry on doing my badges and I know there's people involved in the same kind of courses that can help me out down the line.
That's good. That's good advice, actually. What coaching qualifications do you hold for those who don't?
At the moment, I hold the FA level 1, 2, and 3. All the FA badges I hold at the moment, and the youth modules as well. I also did a sports development course in college as well. That was like my first start into sports. So that was more written, so it was all right. So that kind of and I think that's another thing. If you take a written one at the start, where it's fully written and you kind of just get a bit of knowledge about sport, that can really help you down the line when you do enter football coaching or cricket or rugby or any coaching, to be fair. So that sports development course helped me quite a lot. So at the moment, it's all the FA badges.
Are you looking to go for the UEFA badges?
The UEFA badges, I want to go for them. It's funny because we got an email this morning just saying there's something happening in Glasgow in the summer, and if you want to take it, and my reply straight away was yeah. So it's like one of these things that I want to do. And one of the things with me was when I took my level 1, I was like, okay, that's level 1. When I'm going to do my level 2, so you kind of think because of the confidence issue, it goes back to you kind of think someone's going to stop you or someone's going to come and say you're not good. So you kind of think if I already have all the badges, no one's going to kind of say to me you can't have anything. Yeah. So that's one of the things with me, like that's one of the things that drives me to just carry on getting badges. And so UEFA, I would want to do my UEFA license, yeah. Yeah,
no, that's good stuff. That's good stuff, and good luck with it, by the way. I'm sure I can speak for my co-host as well. Good luck with it. How difficult was it getting your level 1 and 2 qualifications at such a young age, or did your age make it easier? And did your disability make it any harder to get your level 1 and 2 and 3 as well for 3 in it?
Firstly, the age thing, it was really difficult. The age thing was like, that was a major shock for me because when I went in to do it, I didn't really think about the age. It's not one of these things you think. So I just basically thought there'll probably be people around my age that want to get into football, I'll be there. And that's what I thought. And I went in there and there was 30, 40-year-olds that kind of wanted an interest, and it was like, that was a massive difference of age. And and it's a massive difference of their lifestyle as well, because when they grew up, they never really saw wheelchair users being involved in football, so they were kind of always looked at me and said, so you want to be involved in football? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, and I could kind of see it that they were thinking it's probably just a hobby that you just want to kind of do. And it's one of these things that you kind of want to get. And that was just because of the error kind of thing. But it was one of these things with the age thing that I kind of had to win everyone over that, yeah, I'm ready for it. Even the instructors that were training the courses kind of came up to me and said, are you sure you don't want to wait for a few years and then get onto it? And I was like, no, I want to definitely get onto it. So the age thing does play a massive part. But I do think right now there are a lot of young coaches. Even in football, there's a lot of young coaches. So I think a lot of young coaches are getting into football now as well. But the age thing, there is a massive age thing. With the disability thing, I think you're different when you're in there. You do look different and you do stand out. And it's one of these things where you can't go away from that, you can't get away from that. But it's as much as you can be involved. So if they are doing some kind of lesson and they're doing some on the board, and if you can put your hand up and get involved in it, then people kind of think, all right, he's got some knowledge about it, and they'll kind of think, okay, he might know a bit, like they might think to themselves, he might know a bit more than me, and it's kind of that thing. So you got to kind of put yourself out there. It's one of these things that with a disability, if you're just sitting back and you're holding back, a lot of people will think, okay, he's not really getting involved in it, it's probably because he doesn't want to do it. So you got to kind of, it's like put your foot in the door and kind of thing, and just go out there and kind of say, yeah, I know a bit about this. And even if you get the answers wrong, the fact that you're letting everyone know that you're there and you're letting everyone know that you want to succeed at it is one of these things where you're not kind of pushed to the side, especially with the teachers that are teaching the course. It's one of them things, you're letting them know that you're really into it as well. And it's one of these things that they'll help you more as well down the line. If you are struggling with the physical needs, they'll tell you what you'll have to do in the written assessment to get you higher marks. So it's one of these things where you've got to kind of just put yourself out there when you enter the course.
Did the disability make you think that you had to go that extra mile and really be kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of the life of the party, or was it just the case of it? Do you feel it hindered you in any way, or do you feel it kind of made you that bit more of a kind of, I really want to do this, I've got to be putting myself out there?
Well, at the start, it hindered me kind of a bit, because one of the things with you is when you suffer from a disability and you are wheelchair bound, you don't really want to communicate with everyone. So at that part, I did. But when I kind of thought to myself, like, if I'm going to go into a room full of people that are into football, people that played football all their life, how am I going to stand out? There's no way I could. Because when you do some of these courses, you got to be, as much as you got to be one of the best students there to kind of pass these courses. And it's one of these things, how can I be the best student when I haven't played the game to any level, like not to a semi-pro level or anything? And some of these coaches have, some are professional players that have trying to take the coaching badges. So it's one of these things where you have to kind of just go for it. And it was as soon as I went in there and I was moved to a table on my own, and that's when I kind of realized in the course itself that, okay, now you're on your own on this side, like they're not kind of putting you together with the rest of them. So it was like, I'm going to just kind of let everyone know I'm here. And so I just kept putting my hand up. I kept getting so many questions wrong as well, but it was like, I'm here and I want to do it. And I think you anything you do in life, you have to go into it with that attitude, because you might get slapped in your face and you might get, someone might tell you what you're doing or something like that, but you got to kind of take that risk. And it's about risk taking as well. If you take that risk and you kind of, like when you take that risk and then afterwards you know that risk worked, and you kind of think to yourself, wow, I could just imagine I didn't take it. And it kind of gets you thinking. So I think that football thing, once I did take it, like even level 2, I was like straight there, I was still on the ball. So it is massive, risk taking is massive.
That's good. I quite like that, because it's kind of it's the whole kind of risk reward, and obviously you're reaping the benefits of taking that risk. So that's always good to see.
Exactly, because like if you sit in the corner, you can. It's any way of life, even if you're not wheelchair bound. If you sit in the corner, no one's going to notice you. And that's the kind of society and country we're living in right now. So you got to kind of be out there. And if you're not out there, and so to me, it was always like, I wasn't thinking of myself wheelchair bound. I was always thinking to myself, okay, they pushed me aside. So I wasn't thinking, oh, there's a reason they put me there. It might be easier for me to reach the pen or anything like that. No. Like, I'm not going to get that mentality. My head is going to be like, you push me to the side, let me join in with everyone else. So now I'm going to let myself be known here. So it's...
So do you think that within the game you're noticed more for your vast knowledge as opposed to being noticed for your disability?
I think it's a bit of both. I think with the Sunday League coaches and stuff, they understand the knowledge and stuff like that. But obviously, with a lot of people higher up in the game, they will obviously with the disability thing, that's what they'll think of first, and they'll think, how did he pass the courses, or how did he pass level 1, how did he pass level 2 or level 3? So I think that the disability plays a major part the higher people in the game. But with the Sunday League people, when you sit with them and you talk to them and they kind of relate to you, they kind of forget about the disability. And it's kind of like on Sunday League matches, like it's like I give as good as I get, like though the coach and stuff like that. So it's like one of these things at that level you kind of forget. But I think it's the higher level where it is, because obviously there's no wheelchair bound coach out there as well. So it's one of these things that you do get kind of noticed more for that.
Do you think it's almost the way? I mean, you mentioned that kind of the higher up, they kind of see the disability more than the ability. Do you think that's almost disrespectful, or do you think do you think it's just kind of a natural thing that's always going to happen?
I think I don't think it's disrespectful. The only reason I don't think it's disrespectful is because they haven't seen anyone do it. So it's obviously going to be a massive shock to them, and they're going to obviously want to know more about it. And how did everything start? It started off because of the disability. So I kind of look at it, if you want to kind of know about the disability a lot more, and it's because of that you want to know, then I will tell you, because there's a lot of people in the same boat as me before that are interested in football and didn't get. And I know if I can, even if they're interested to the disability, if I can spread the word out, a lot of people will hear about it and get into it more. So it doesn't really get to me to the point where I think, oh, why do they think that or anything like that. But there are sometimes you think, oh, do really judge me on my knowledge at times. But I think in the higher up in the game, unless you got a massive position or you're a manager of a football club, you're not going to be judged like that. It's anyone, no one's going to be judged like that. Yeah. But like I said before, like if the disability is getting me to kind of spread the word out and getting me the higher people higher up to notice about people suffering from disabilities and getting into football, then it's working. So I don't mind like basically just going up there and them knowing about the disability and wanting, just because of that reason, wanting to kind of communicate and stuff like that, as long as they'll get more people into the game. So
it's almost kind of indirectly you've kind of taken an ambassadorial role almost.
Yeah, it's more definitely like that. Like if it's one of these things, like if someone else was already there and there was 11 or 12 wheelchair bound coaches and they kind of just wanted, because of the disability, then it would obviously hurt, because it's one of these things that I acknowledge. But because there's no one out there, it's one of these things that I think I could kind of start getting to the people higher up in the game and getting them to notice, and then they might give some more funding down to people, and then you never know, for years from now there might be people that start coaching wheelchair bound football coaches to become able-bodied coaches. So it is kind of one of them things where I just want to kind of let them know about it, really. Yeah,
nice. That. See, even just that is inspirational. It is inspirational stuff. I mean, we've got our first video question actually from our co-host, the G-Man, with coaching in mind.
What do you most enjoy about football coaching?
Short and simple.
What do I most enjoy about football coaching? Development. When you in Sunday League, when you have a 8-year-old or a 9-year-old kid that comes to you for the first week, and he's right foot, says right footed, and all he'll do everything with his right foot. He'll kind of tell him that you could use your other foot to do certain things, you could pass the ball with it and stuff. And then you kind of keep teaching him over a few weeks, and then you'll see in a game one day him using his left foot and going past people, and you kind of feel like you kind of help that happen. Yeah, and it's one of the things, so it's development. So it's like one of these things, development is a major part. Like even if someone's scared of heading a ball, you get a lot of youngsters that are scared of heading a ball. They don't want to put their head on the ball. Yeah. And it's one of these things, like you said to them, what if you got a goal out of it, or what if you got this out of it? And you'll practice with them for probably hours, just chucking the ball up at their head and then heading it back to you. And they'll do this over days, over months, and then they'll score a header in a game, and you'll think to yourself, I played a bit of a part in that. And so development does really make you, it makes you carry on going as well. It's one of these things that you think, okay, let's develop you on somewhere else. So development is a major part, and that's probably the best thing about football coaching.
That's good stuff. In your view, what is the difference between a manager and a head coach, and what would you consider yourself as, and do you think that's going to change with age?
The difference between a head coach and a manager, the head coach is more the manager's more tactical than the head coach. So he's more based on the tactics of who they're playing against. So he'll look at that kind of stuff and how he can beat him tactically. And also man management. Manager plays a key part in that as well. A football coach is more of a teacher kind of thing, whereas in he'll put the drills out, he'll set everything up and be like, this is what you got to do, this is how you got to do it. And it's like everyone's in the same boat with the head coach. With a manager, you can kind of go to one player and say this, that, and go to another player and say this, that. So it's more of a man management, and it's tactical as well with the manager. With the head coach, it's just coaching players. So with me, at the moment, I do a lot of coaching, but I think because of not being involved so much physically, I think it'll have to be management. And it's one of these things where I would love to manage a football club one day. Like, that's my dream. So it's one of these things that I'll go for. But I think as you get older as well, you've probably seen a lot of coaches that have started off as head coaches or first team coaches that end up into managers, and some can't hack it. Like there's Rennie Mulstein at Fulham. Like when he was at Fulham, he couldn't hack it, and that's because he was always born to coach. He was never born to manage it, because you got to pick up stuff as well, like how to handle the media and stuff as well. So it's a massive difference as well. A lot of people don't think it's a difference. A lot of football club owners don't think it's a massive difference. They always think that the reserve team coach or first team coach can come and take the job as a manager, but there's a massive difference.
With that in mind that there's such a big difference, what do you think about with Swansea promoting Gary Monk in that way? I'd like to get your opinion on that.
With the Swansea thing is, Gary Monk never was really involved in coaching so much, but he was always, from what I've heard, one of the people in the dressing room that was like, come on lads, let's go for it, kind of talking to each player like, come on, let's get in their faces and stuff like that. So if he was like that in the dressing room, then it's the perfect appointment.
So he's kind of a manager rather than being the assistant coach.
It's like Roy Keane was at Man United. He was kind of right in there, telling him in the dressing room and even on the pitch, like, come on. And then he went to Sunderland and he did quite well. Obviously, too bad after that. Yeah. But it was managers-wise, he did really well there. So it's like captains and born leaders can turn into managers straight away. And it's like they don't really, obviously they have to get the coaching badges, but they don't really have to go too much into coaching. But coaching helps you massively, because if you become like Gary Monk, if Gary Monk had Michael Laudrup there, Brendan Rodgers, Roberto Martinez, these are great coaches and great managers, some of them, but great coaches they are. So he kind of picked up on the coaching as well whilst being there. So he had kind of the perfect little road up, and then he was straight thrown into the management. But with management, he was a born leader already. Yeah. So that was kind of given to him. But with the coaching styles that he learned from Laudrup and Rodgers and Martinez was one of these things that really helped him a lot as well.
What is your view on managers being fast-tracked into coaching roles, especially those without the correct badges, like Alan Shearer when he took over at Newcastle? Do you think they should have to earn their stripes as they did as players? And also, you mentioned about how brutal it is being a manager, having to deal with the media and that kind of thing. Do you want to expand on that as well as...
The fast-tracking first is one of these things where the fans play a major part, because obviously every fan, if a player's been playing for 20 years, they want that player to go to no other club and be a coach at no other club. So it's one of these things where sometimes clubs, because of the fans' interest, they have to kind of push it. But it is really difficult. It's one of these things where you kind of will think sometimes, like with the Alan Shearer thing, that should have never happened in a relegation battle, to throw in a club legend like that as well. And sometimes it can ruin your reputation. Yeah. And it can play a massive part in ruining your reputation. So you kind of got to be aware of it. And even in the courses, it's brutal. Like the reason it's brutal is because you all want to be football coaches, and football's not a place, or coaching is not a role where there's so many jobs available as well. So it's kind of everyone's looking at each other as in, yeah, you want my job, I want your job, and it's that kind of that's the reason. So like, I'm better than you at this drill, I'm better than you at that drill. Oh, look at my assessment that I've done, it's better than yours. So it's kind of, you got to keep on beating each other. And it's like, so it's not like one of these things where you go do the course for 2 weeks. It's like, when you're doing the course, you got to go home each night and kind of think to yourself, okay, do you see what he had today? He had something unbelievable in his assessment. I need to beat that. How can I beat that? And you got to kind of surf on the internet and kind of look at. With me, one of the things was, because I wasn't involved so much physically, I went and looked back at Jock Stein, Bill Shankly, Matt Busby, and that gave me I was ahead in the assessment side of it, the written assessment side of it, because I looked back at how they manage their players and stuff like that. So that is a major part of it as well.
That's good stuff. because it's just quite an interesting view that it's very much almost kind of a dog eat dog mentality. Do you think that's kind of the wrong mentality to have, or do you think it helps keep the standards up that everyone's competing with each other, or do you think it's kind of counterproductive?
The reason is a lot of people that start these courses are grown men, so they know they haven't got really long left to get into football.
Yeah.
So it's one of these things like is do or die basically. It's like we got to get in there. I got to get in there somehow. You're going to take my position. If it was a lot of younger coaches, it might have really been different. Might have been helping each other, feeding off each other, that kind of thing. But because they're grown men and they late 30s, early 40s, it's one of them things where I got to get into football in the next 6 years. If I want to be a manager one day or a coach one day, I've got to get there in the next 6 years. So I think that does play a major part. That because the ages, because they're so much older, most of them, it's kind of one of them things where you just got to kind of see like, oh, well, with me, one of the things was they were thinking to themselves that he's 21, so why is he kind of like, why does he want to get involved in it so early and that kind of thing. So, but I think if it was a lot more younger coaches, it might be a lot more help for each other and stuff. But then again, a lot of the older coaches, they've had experience over 50, 40, 30 years playing Sunday League or watching Sunday League or whatever. So it's one of these things where, because they're so much older, they kind of think that they have to kind of fast track themselves into football coaching as well. And that's the kind of mentality they have.
No, that's food for thought. That is actually food for thought. Actually, I mean, yeah, I just find that quite interesting. That it's just, I mean, I understand that competition can kind of drive standards up, but at the same time, if it's kind of almost, do you think that's kind of putting off some young coaches? That young coaches are coming into the courses, seeing that level of competition between the older lot, and just thinking, well, you're all kind of fighting against each other, but you're not giving us a chance. Do you think?
Yeah. I think a lot will think that. Like I kind of thought that after the first week of doing it, and it's one of the things. It's really where you're based as well. Like where I did the course was near Bradford, a local town. So it was like, how many local coaches are going to get from here anywhere? So it does really be where you take the course. If you take a course somewhere in London or Glasgow, it might be a lot easier, but I think it does put off a lot of local young coaches if they're doing local courses. I think if it was a national course or it was somewhere London or Birmingham or something like that, then it would be a lot different. But because the FA is coming closer and because they're bringing most of these courses closer to home, it's one of these things where people that never really got the chance to do it are getting the chance to do it, and they're thinking, I might never get this chance again, so I just got to kind of get myself in there. And with a younger lot, it's like, okay, I don't belong here because these lot have been waiting all their life for this kind of moment. I want to get into football, but I've not even lived my life to the point where they've really wanted this. So it's about where you're based as well. That does kind of play a major effect, because you're not going to get 8 managers from a town near Bradford managing in the Premier League. It's not going to happen. Everyone goes with that mentality and they kind of know that in their head. So that does play a major part as well. It's where you're kind of doing the course as well.
Do you think the powers that be in football, such as the FA, UEFA, among others, need to really look at that and try and change the mentality? And if yes, what can they do to change it?
They do need to kind of change the mentality. What I would say they could do is, it's all about competition. Football's a kind of sport where if there's a competition, if there's something to play for, everyone's into it and everyone feels a part of it. So if the FA did more local county cups or anything like that, it would be one of these things where a lot more people would know they'd have more coaching opportunities, so it won't be one of these things where I'll strangle you for yours, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the only thing, is probably putting on more local tournaments or putting on more local events. And if you have a local team as well, I think one of the things with having a local team is there's so much levels you'll have of that local team. So all the way from the first team down to the under 8. So everyone understands they could be involved in the local team. So in that way, the FA could play a major part like that.
No, that's good. It's food for thought there. Greg Dyke, that's food for thought right there. We actually do have another video question. There's a few more video questions.
No.
We've got another video question from our co-host, the G-Man.
Mourinho and Guardiola are both super talented and successful coaches. You know, they're almost polar opposites of one another. They're compared on their mentality, their style of play, and their methods of training. You know, just putting you on the spot here, if you had to choose who was the best, who would you choose and why?
Who was that between?
Between Guardiola and Mourinho. It's difficult.
That's probably going to be one of the best questions I've ever had. That's hard. That is really hard. With Guardiola's like we were talking about fast tracking. Barcelona fast track Guardiola massively, but it worked. With Mourinho is like he worked under Bobby Robson for a long time, and it was one of these things he kind of grafted. Exactly, and kind of grafted. I'd say Guardiola's managed probably the best team I've ever seen. So tactically, you probably think it's brilliant, but then you see Mourinho come in the big games, and you know, like we say, you have that big game player. Well, Mourinho's your big game manager. So it's difficult. I'd only say Guardiola, and the only reason I'll say Guardiola is because the Barcelona team I watched was unbelievable. So I'll probably only say for that reason, and it's probably because of a cheating kind of reason as well, because Mourinho's done so much at different clubs. But the two clubs that are now, I know Bayern are doing brilliant, and Guardiola's kind of changed the philosophy. But if Mourinho wins the Champions League with Chelsea, which could still happen, and if he does that, then that really, he actually can say, I'm better than Pep Guardiola here, because that would really make a difference, because that would mean he won in Portugal, he won in Italy, and he's won in England. With Guardiola, I think Bayern Munich, Barcelona's been great, but I'd love to see what Guardiola does next as well. I'd love to see him take a job. It's one of these things where I always thought it'd be great to see Guardiola come to England, whether it was Man City or even with the Man United thing I would love to see Guardiola kind of go for that challenge of replacing Alex Ferguson and kind of be like, I'm going to be the man to replace him. Whereas Mourinho kind of made that known, I want to be the guy to replace Alex Ferguson. So it's a different mentality they both have. The only reason I'll say Guardiola is because of that Barcelona team in 2009.
I can't blame you, to be honest. I mean, when they played Man United off the park in 2011, we were down on Wembley Way for that, as it happened, and didn't want to.
I was at that game as well. I was at that game.
I'm surprised we didn't bump into each other, actually, because we were watching it in one of the bars in the area, and it was kind of the Man United fans were fuming after, but some of them were just like, you know what, we got outplayed. We got outplayed by the best team on the planet. So it's
to watch a footballing lesson like that live was like, wow. It was one of these things where they came in and they kind of said, okay, we're going to teach you how to play football, and that's basically what they did. For 90 minutes, that's what they did, and it was like one of these things. You look at the game and you thought to yourself, you can't really say anything to the United lads. They tried as hard as they could. But it was...
When you're overmatched, you're overmatched.
Overmatched, exactly. They didn't belong against Barcelona last season. That night, they lost Ronaldo Tevez a few years before, and it was one of these things where that team was still... It was kind of declining, and you could kind of see it. To be in a European final itself was an absolute brilliant achievement from Sir Alex to get him there. But he kind of... I could tell by... He's a winner, and he always wants to win, but I could kind of see it after the first goal when he kind of knew what was coming. And it's one of these things that team, I think whoever was in the final would have got a battering, really.
I actually do agree with that. What do you think are the best qualities of a successful manager?
Man management is a big part, and man management is one of these things where, especially the football now, no one's going to play week in, week out. That's just not going to happen. And so big are the squads. It's unbelievable how big the squads are now. It's like one of these things where you got to keep everyone happy, and so managers struggle to do it. Sir Alex was a master at it. He'd tell players, you're going to play in 4 weeks, or you're going to play in 3 weeks, and kind of, I'm dropping you because I want to save you. That's never true. That's never true. That isn't something that's true. Any level of football.
I'm dropping you because you dropped the ball last week.
No, that's never true. It's not none of these things. I'm dropping you because I want you for this game. That's never true. But it's one of the things, that's how it'll make the players feel. So when they do go back, they'll think, I have to be ready for that game. But then it's different. You get it kind of like David Moyes now. He struggles with it quite a lot. You can tell it's one of these things where...
I think he struggles with quite a lot this season.
No, but he kind of struggles with, like, Hernandez is one of the things. Like, I look at Hernandez and I think he was never the most technically gifted player at Man United, but Sir Alex knew how to use him, and he used him at the right time. But David Moyes is one of these things where he's got one person with Rooney Welbeck, and it's when am I going to use you off the bench last 10 minutes, but... It's kind of, you got to manage him. You got to kind of say to him, I'll give you a game and I'll give you a chance. So man management is a major part, and it's all the media. The media is unreal, really. If we're watching football and we see an interview and we see a manager kind of lose his cool, we kind of notice it. And if a manager does lose his cool, his players are going to notice it as well.
Yeah, well, look at Kevin Keegan back in '97. Sorry, '96. It was one of them. It was like, no, Kevin. Oh, Rafael Benitez in 2009. It's like, oh, Rafa, please, no.
With Kevin Keegan and Rafa, like the Kevin Keegan thing, he didn't need to lose his cool. Like,
yeah, he just exploded. When you say that about my like Stuart Pearce,
or we'll go there and we'll beat him and this and that. It was like, no. And it was like, you don't need to go that far. And with Sir Alex the funny thing about Kevin Keegan and Benitez was they were both against Sir Alex.
Yeah.
And he was like the master that he'd come in and he'd basically say, oh, they got the players, they've got this, they've got that. And then kind of just go away. And then he knew inside his own mind that he was ticking the other man.
He's stirring the pot.
Stirring the pot big time. And with Rafa is one of these guys that he's really knowledgeable, and so he thought, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna.
Here's the facts. There we go.
If he did it in a way where nobody would have noticed it, and he just kept bringing one fact to press conference, then it would have been different. Yeah. The fact that he kind of had his full sheet there and he went through it.
Fact. It's like, oh,
and then the United players.
And then we ended up drawing against Stoke, and it was like that was the turning point.
United won on Monday against Chelsea that game, and I remember I was thinking to myself, when he was doing the press conference, and I was thinking to myself, the United players are going to watch this and think to themselves, oh, that's what he's saying about us. And it kind of gives you that lift, like, we'll show you, we'll show you. Yeah, we'll show you in the game. And the Liverpool players must have been thinking,
he's piling the pressure on us. No.
Pressure, and it's the referees. If you ever think by slating like what another manager is doing to a referee or anything like that is going to get you decisions in the game, it's not.
Oh no, not at all. Oh God, not at all.
A lot of managers try to play the card there, just in case it does ever help, but it'll never help because one of the things with referees is the humans, so they're going to get decisions wrong. Yeah. But I think that the Rafa moment was like that changed the title race completely.
What do you think about the whole kind of mind games thing? Is it necessary, or is it just managers playing up to the media?
It depends on what kind of manager you are, and your players. It depends on your players. Sometimes you need to do it for your players. Like I think Sir Alex kind of built this thing at Man United where he kind of had to do it to be successful. It was one of the things to win league titles. He had to get his message across in the media to his players. So it's like a hidden kind of message to the media, and his players kind of got that as well. So it's like he'd never kind of say it to him or kind of tell him. It was like this hidden message that, oh, this is my players. With Mourinho, sometimes he's playing up to the TV. A lot of times he is. Yeah. But with Jose, one of the things with mind games, if you don't make it obvious, then it's kind of all right. But when you make it so obvious and you kind of slay everyone that's against you and stuff like that, then it does kind of get to the point where you're going a bit too crazy about it. If you put it in now and again and you said something, then it's different. But I think with Mourinho wants to make it obvious for some reason. And the only reason you can look at Mourinho and think he wants to make it obvious is because he wants to play up to the camera at times. So
I don't call him the special one. I call him the arrogant one. He drives me up the wall. He really does drive me up the wall. I'm not overly enamored towards Chelsea anyway, but it's just him. He's just it's a media conspiracy. Wait, you're a media darling? What?
Yeah, but it's one of these things like I was saying before, big game manager and big game players. The big game players always have something about them. And with Mourinho being a big game manager, that's something about him. Like he'll always try to win the game in the press conference. Like I can remember Guardiola lost his cool, didn't he, in the press conference about Mourinho, and saying that he'll win all the time in here and stuff like that. So it's one of these things where Mourinho will say, kind of try to make it 1-0 before he actually goes into a game. Yeah. So it's kind of 1-0 to me. Let's see what you can do. Can you do anything?
Got a Twitter question at the Lovely Reds, which is actually an Arsenal blog ran by Alex Jordan's. Big shout out to him. Actually, we actually met Alex at the Man City v Sunderland Capital One Cup final this year. So that was quite an interesting one. At the Lovely Reds on Twitter have asked, number one, what is it about football that makes you so determined to make it? Number two, another comparison, Wenger or Mourinho. And number three, how would you deal with Balotelli?
So number one, the reason, what makes me determined to go into football is one of these, someone can work from Monday to Friday, 5 days a week. All he's looking forward to is Saturday, watching his team and being on the terraces and kind of cheering his team on. And it's that kind of thing where you think people wait their full week for a weekend game. And when football's not on, everyone's kind of depressed as well.
Yeah, it's kind of, what do I do?
Exactly. If the World Cup's not on, everyone's like, what's going on? Like even at the Olympics were great and they were brilliant, but football fans were like, you know what I mean? So it's one of these things where that's one of the things where the fact that people work so hard Monday to Friday, just want to watch the team on the Saturday, and if your team goes to play on a Saturday and looks like they're not trying, then I think the players should feel guilty because they should at least try for the full 90 minutes just because of the fact they should just think of that.
Especially when they're getting paid that much as well. That's another byproduct.
Wenger and Mourinho, that's difficult as well. The thing with Wenger was, when I was growing up, Arsene Wenger was like, he was unbelievable at times, especially that Invincible team. That was like, that for me, that was like, are they ever going to lose? Please lose. That's what I was kind of wishing. It was like that kind of thing. Like,
but it was the irony of who they lost against, who they lost that unbeaten really.
But it was like, they're not going to lose. Why are they never going to lose? And it's like, it's very hard to build that as well. To make your team invincible isn't something you can do just by being a good manager. You got to kind of be there and kind of keep them going. Like, it's one of these, they might lose motivation or they might think, okay, we've won the league, because at times they look like they won the league by a mile, but he was kind of still saying to him, oh, come on, let's carry on going. So one of the things Wenger is that, but I think stats will back me up on it. But Mourinho is just the big games, and I think against Arsene Wenger, from all the games I've watched, Mourinho's always tactically outbeat him and completely. So I think Mourinho is the better manager, but that Invincible team was unbelievable.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And how would you deal with Balotelli? I'm not getting away from that one.
I wouldn't.
He's a firework, let's say that much.
That's difficult. But the thing with Balotelli is he's so talented, it's unbelievable. Like, some of the stuff Mario Balotelli can do is like, it's wow, that's the kind of thing. But then to kind of just go into the streets of Manchester throwing 20,000 around is like...
I remember hearing about that. That was one of them where we had it on the show. And was it when he was dressed up as Santa Claus? We heard that as a rumor, but never ever got confirmation on it. We looked everywhere. We were hoping it was true, because that would have been one of the funniest. That would have been one of the funniest football stories since the dentist chair thing with Gaza before Euro '96. That would have blown that out of the water.
Up north, a lot of people think it was true, so it's one of these things that you kind of don't know. But the rumor is that up north, that is true. But if that is, it's like one of these things with Mario Balotelli is, he's kind of a player that you've got to kind of try to give him his moment on a football pitch. So that kind of arrogance, like with the arrogance, you like let him take free kicks and let him take penalties and let him get, like, free kicks is like your moment where you can kind of be arrogant and kind of think, yeah. I'm the man here, I'm going to score this. And if you can kind of let it feed off into that, or let him kind of do interviews. I know it's a hard thing, letting Balotelli do interviews.
Yeah, exactly. Especially after that post-match one, after they won the FA Cup in 2011. I've been this season, and it's like, can I say that? No, you can't say that, but you just did on live TV, so you can't do anything about it.
It's like, if it's one of these things, like if you said to him, you can express yourself on TV, but not to the point where you're kind of going that crazy, but you can. And it's like, he's one of the things with that Man City was he was kind of in a cage, and like, Mario will protect you, we'll just leash you for 90 minutes and then protect you again. And it's like, he needs to kind of be involved in everything. So like, with his arrogance and stuff, let him take free kicks, let him take corners, and let him practice. Even if he's not good at them, let him take 1 or 2 a game and just let him practice on it and make himself good at it. Because with the thing with Balotelli is, I don't think, like, there's a lot of rumours about Cantona, but Cantona was bad to a point, but Cantona was a bit more, he'll listen to Ferguson, he would listen to his teammates and stuff like that. With Balotelli is everything he says is right and everything everyone else says is wrong.
Yeah.
So it's one of these things that, and I thought Mancini was his best mate, to be fair, and he was one of the guys that could control him. And I think it was Seedorf now, I think he's had a bit of a thingy with the Seedorf as well. So Balotelli is one of the things, you can't let him, you got to kind of let him have his moment, and it's about how you let him have his moment. And he's one of these players that if you do let him have his moment, he'll kind of think, okay, I've had my moment now it's time to kind of get back to playing and stuff. So it's just about how you let him kind of have that.
That's a good way of dealing with him, actually. I'd never.
There's no way of dealing with him, to be fair.
I mean, what was it? Speaking of Balotelli, what was it kind of, again, just kind of throwing in a question here? What was your view when Adel Taarabt was signed by AC Milan? Because I thought to myself, oh my word, this is going to be insane. We haven't really heard anything. Negative about Taarabt and Balotelli in the same team.
Exactly.
But what was your view originally, knowing those two have a predilection to being naughty boys, as it were?
I think again, like you, I thought someone might pop off, but with Adele Milan never wanted Adele really. They wanted Nani from United, so it was one of these things where they kind of settled.
I'd rather Adele to rap than Nani.
They kind of settled for Adele. So it was one of these things where you did kind of think about. But I think players like that can relate to each other on skill level as well. I think to rap to someone insane skill level, and same with Balotelli. And it's one of these things that, in a weird way, they kind of could get a friendship going. Because one of these things was, when you do a lot of skills, there's a lot of players that be training and stuff that won't want to be involved in it. Now, if you're practicing skills with another player that's as skillful as you are, is up there with technical ability and skills, it's one of these things that where you're going to feed off each other. So it can kind of work as you can become kind of mates as well. But to be fair, I don't know what's going on with them too. I think they're kind of all right at the moment together, but someone might pop off by the time this is out, someone might pop off, so we don't know.
We've spoken about dealing with players, and you said that man management is very important. Relating in part to that, how did you get involved with coaching your local under-10 side?
Well, basically what I did was I used to do sessions now and again, just with the youth clubs. Now, a lot of the lads that come to the youth clubs play a lot of the under-10s teams and under-11s teams and stuff. So I just kind of heard about it, kind of got into it, and a lot of coaches didn't want to really do it, because with the under-10s thing is, there's a lot of questions, and you can't, and the under-10s want answers, so they want them straight away. They want to know what's.
I want to know this. I want to know that. And the energy.
Yeah. So basically, with me was when I went there, it was like, how fast does the wheelchair go? Does it do wheelies? And it's that kind of mentality from them. That's the kind of questions I got. I was thinking to myself, what am I doing here?
Yeah. I suppose with youngsters at that age, it's like they don't mean anything by it. It's just that inquisitive nature.
I think
it's like being around a 5-year-old, and it's like you've got to watch everything you say, because they're just taking everything.
Exactly, and that's what it was. So what I think a lot of coaches didn't want to do it because of that reason. But what I decided to do was, I kind of said, let's do the hours training session. Afterwards, I'll answer any question you got for another hour. And that was the kind of how I got into it and kind of worked with it and built that kind of relationship with them, where they could kind of think, okay, we can ask him stuff and he'll give us answers to it. So they asked about how fast the wheelchair was and everything like that.
The wheelies, that's brilliant. Only kids could ask that kind of question.
Exactly. But that's the kind of questions they asked afterwards, and I answered them. But I think a lot of people don't really have the time to do that, and you've got to have the time. With coaching younger teams, you've got to have the time. If you don't have the time to kind of listen to them, it's going to get really difficult. It's going to get to the point where they're not going to listen to you, and they're only 10. So I kind of said that we'll chat about anything, the wheelies, everything, and it's one of them things.
I mean, we've had as a Pitch Talk Meets guest before, Manisha Taylor, who with a side she's involved in Gibbons Wreckers FC, manages kids of that age as well, like under 12s, under 10s, I think as low as like under 8s. How difficult is it at that age, and how much effort do you have to put in terms of creativity with drills and also keeping their attention as well? How difficult is that?
It's massively important, because around the age of 8 to 10, if they don't kind of like what they're doing, they're kind of never going to do it. And that's what you kind of think to yourself. So it's one of these things where you got to kind of, and another thing with them is that's the best stage for development. To start development around that age is the best stage to start. So it's one of these things you got to first kind of get the people that actually want to do it. That's another thing. A lot of parents will force their kids to become a footballer, and you got to kind of see what the kid wants to really do. So if you do have a kid that off his own back really wants to try it, I had an 8-year-old once that he was playing unbelievably as well, but he knew he had kits of Aston Villa, Chelsea, Bolton, everything. And I thought to myself, he's really into his football. So you got to kind of see which one is it in or not, and you got to kind of see which one's being pushed in, because there will be kids that don't want to do it and that don't like doing it. And with them, you got to kind of just give them the enjoyment of it. So it's kind of, you got to kind of read them as well. And with the attention keeping is, if your drills are fun is a massive part of that. If your drills are fun, they'll stay involved in it. Like there's some drills that we do this kind of, all the kids line up, and it's kind of, we just tell them switch, which is just turning basically to each side. And then we tell them, if I shout red, you run to the red cone, yellow cone, and stuff like that. And it's like, that kind of gets the attention as well, because they're kind of thinking, which one's going to be, and the last one's out as well, so they're kind of thinking, who's going to be out, who's going to be the first one there. So, yeah, exactly. And the reactions is improving as well with the development there as well. So you got to kind of adjust, and fun is a major factor as well.
That's good stuff. As a coach, this is for a question from @TweetWhiteLine, which is actually Thin White Line magazine, which we actually featured in issue 0. @TweetWhiteLine via Twitter have asked, have you ever been given a red card and banished to the stands, in inverted commas?
It'd be trouble getting me to the stand. That would be difficult in the first place. So I don't think they'd want to do that. But the thing is, there's been a few games where I've seen. You kind of get into the game, so I've kind of like with the referee kind of got into the game as well. Yeah. And I've kind of given him so much stick all game, and he's kind of turned around to me afterwards and said, "I've never been given that much stick in my life." And I kind of thought to myself, "All right, I must calm down." But then I've carried on again. There has been moments where I've been told, "Listen, just calm down a bit. I'm the referee. I'll deal with it." And I'm like, "No, you're not dealing with it." Especially when a blatant decision goes against you. Yeah. As a coach or any manager, that just gets you into it, and you have 8 or 9 people behind you that are subs that are kind of giving you, give him some. And you kind of get that from behind as well. Yeah. So you're like kind of, all right, I'm going to listen to him and I'm going to kind of give him some. So it's one of these things where I have been told off, but I've never been told to go to the stands. I don't think that'll ever happen because they'll have to probably get someone to take me up. So it's one of them things.
A question from one of our legitimately biggest supporters and one of our longest serving supporters, the man who we always throw them teas up for on shows, and that is Big T, aka Thomas Hewitt. He's asked via Twitter, at Original T44 on Twitter, he's asked, can you ever see a disabled man or woman ever becoming a manager of a football league team in this country?
I'll be honest with you, if it's going to happen anywhere, it's going to happen in England. That's what I basically think it's going to happen with the FA. With the FA, I think, and what's changed is, what's played a major part of this is the Paralympics. I think with the FA, it's like they've kind of just watched the Paralympics and they've watched disabled sports grow, and they kind of just had to watch because they've had nothing else to do. They can't kind of do anything. So it's one of these things where they've just watched and they've just seen all the funding basically gone into the Paralympic sports, and they've seen wheelchair basketball. And if it is going to happen anywhere, because of the Paralympics have played a major part for a lot of disabled people in this country.
So do you think London 2012 actually did leave a legacy?
That's a massive legacy, and it's a legacy that'll go into lots of different sports. And I think with football, one of the things is if it's going to ever happen in any other country, it's going to happen in this country. And the only reason I say that is because it's one of these things where, especially the lower league clubs, they're so open. And I know a lot of the Premier League clubs will find that obviously hard to be with so much media support, but a lot of the lower league clubs are so open to having new coaches come in and new people come in. So, and you don't get that in a lot of the other countries. A lot of the other countries, they'll try to make their former players kind of get every single job that they could possibly get. Yeah. But in this country, you kind of get coaches kind of going from different, like it's a bit like the Ajax thing with Bergkamp, Van der Sar, De Boer, and you got everyone there. But like here, you kind of get it always changes around, and like it's a bit like any manager that started from the bottom, he goes to the top. Like Rodgers was at Chelsea under Mourinho, but that's was there, and now they managed Liverpool, and he managed Tottenham, and now he doesn't. So it's one of these things where if it's ever going to happen, and you're ever going to get a chance at any level, it's probably England's the best chance to get it, I think.
Okay, that. Is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to in terms of supporters and those who have helped you along the way?
I'll probably say Andy again. Andy's like, he could have a million shout outs if he wants. Like he was basically the reason I got into sport. So he was like the driving force behind that. And there's also Tony Strudwick, who's at Man United, who's a fitness coach. He's really supportive as well. Probably could carry on going. There's Ross McCormack as well at Leeds, and he's a massive support. So there's a lot of people that have been supportive as well. So I think having that kind of support from these kind of people that are like with Tony and Ross, they're already involved in the game, and to have that support, they can kind of share with me. Like if I have anything, I can kind of go to them and say, "Oh, there's this happening, or there's this happening. What should I do?" And they'll kind of give me the advice. With Tony, he's giving me some fitness drills and stuff like that. So like that way, they're really helpful a lot of people, and especially them two as well.
No, that's great. That's great. That is fantastic to hear.
Now we'll watch it though, Ross. He'll definitely, he just wanted to be included in it. He was saying that as long as he mentioned me, I'll kind of have a look at it. So.
Hopefully so. Class on Gross is our next segment. And first question is, can you explain to us what Class on Gross is, how Class on Gross started, and how long it's been going for?
How long it's been going for? It's been going for Now, I would say it properly, because one thing, like I said, we used it for football tournaments and obviously organising football tournaments, so we used the name Class on Grass because I always needed a name for the tournaments. And then just putting on a few sessions and stuff like that. But because what we want to do is get more disabled people involved in football. That's our main aim. Not only football, on sport as well. That's why we went for the Class on Grass kind of vibe, just like to get more people involved in whether it's rugby, football, cricket, anything. So it's about getting disabled people into sport. How long it's been going for? It's not been going for roughly, we've only got serious about it about 2 years ago, where it's one of these things where I thought we got to kind of also get the story out to everyone and kind of inspire more disabled people and go to schools and try to put sessions on for them. And there was a Thursday nights evening session I used to do at the local school with a lot of kids with learning support difficulties and stuff. And we did a lot of sessions with them. We did a 7-week football course with them and stuff like that. So it's really just about getting disabled people involved in the game.
Oh, that's good stuff. From the research that we've done, Class on Grass organised football tournaments. Can you let us know where and how difficult is it to set up tournaments? How much work goes into it?
Where we organised one in Leeds, Ross McCormack came down and Noel Hunt, Leeds United players, which was brilliant, to be fair. They were really supportive, so they came down. We had, it was an open age tournament, 16 teams. We want to go national with it. We want to kind of do a tournament everywhere. Our next one's going to be done in Manchester. So that's our next aim, to do a tournament there, an open age one. And then kind of go everywhere, London, Glasgow, everywhere, and do an open age tournament. And then kind of have one big tournament with all the winners. And that's our next aim. So Manchester's the next one. Again, the footballing, like one of the things with the footballers is they're really open. Like with the Manchester one, like Aruna Kone and Yaya Toure are two of the people that might come down to it, and they're really open to coming down to it as well. So really, to the people that are helping us get these kind of people to come down to the tournament and just kind of support Class on Grass as well is brilliant. Also, on the days that we do the tournament, what we're going to try to do now is try to do a disability tournament at the same time as well. Whether it be, because we can play wheelchair football as well with the bumper at the front and summer. So we're going to try to do 2 or 3 different tournaments on the same day and just kind of try to make a Class on Grass weekend out of it instead of a tournament. Organising a football tournament is quite difficult because especially the local tournaments, you know everyone, so it's like, who don't you like the most? That kind of thing. And you kind of try to stitch them up a bit as well. But organising a tournament is the point where you need people with you that you know are going to help you quite a lot. So, and you got to have a lot of people, because I can't do most of the running around as well, which I have to kind of get. So I get kind of family involved in it sometimes as well, or sometimes friends and everything.
So I guess delegating is quite important.
You got to kind of, each person has to know this it's kind of role, and you got to know what you got to do. So that kind of is difficult. The day itself, once you organise a tournament and you're on the day itself, of course, brilliant, because everyone's there to play the tournament, so that's brilliant. It is difficult to organise, but I think there's great satisfaction in it. The satisfaction in it is brilliant, because people will talk. It's one of these things that if you organise an under-15s tournament, kids will be talking in the playground about it 2 months after, and that gives you satisfaction, because that's one of the things that you give them, that kind of subject to talk about, and they'll be waiting for it next year, and it's like, yeah, I kind of give them that. So it's the satisfaction of it's great, but it's difficult to organise at times.
Yeah, I mean, oddly enough, actually, in regards to setting up tournaments, your brother, who's here and is off camera, actually mentioned about the first ever tournament that you set up. What happened, and where did that happen?
It was in the tennis courts in Amugga, and basically what happened with that was it was like I said, it was like everyone used to play, and I used to think, you're playing for nothing. So got a trophy, got them to the tournament. It was like, there was tennis courts, there was loads of stuff there, and it was like all the teams were actually moving the stuff out of the way. These are teams that came to play in the football tournament that actually had to graft and move stuff out of the way to play. And it was just one of these things that I always wanted to watch competitive football. Like pre-season, I hate pre-season games. Like when pre-season games,
it was pointless. It's fitness exercise, really.
It's like you watch it and you think to yourself, you don't want to score a goal, and that's what you kind of think in your head. And it's like so difficult to watch. And when you watch a lot of local kids play, sometimes you think to yourself, just imagine you were playing for someone, you run that extra yard, or you'll take that extra chance, and you kind of just go for it. So that's one of the reasons really why I got into tournaments and started organising tournaments. But like pre-season ticks me off. Like, have you seen the pre-season tournaments? Like, they're trying to make them exciting as well. Like they're trying to do somewhere to kind of just.
Yeah, let's go to Malaysia and have some big hype over it. It's like, dude, it's pre-season.
Yeah,
There's nothing on the
they're
line.
trying to do that, but I think what would make pre-season brilliant is, and it's probably difficult to organise, but if they came and played some local teams, and kind of it went that way, because then the local teams would give them a game they would remember, because the local teams would go for it non-stop.
Yeah.
And now that's pre-season. So, and back in the day, that used to happen quite a lot. A lot of the teams used to never play each other. They used to go play a lot of local teams around the areas and stuff. So I think that's probably one of the things where that could, and it'd be a great benefit to local teams as well, to have that game which they could sell out and kind of keep their club running as well. But that would be the way forward. But I think with so much money involved in the game, that's just not going to happen.
So would you say, so with that in mind, the Real Madrid v Bournemouth game, what did you think of that then? Did you think that was a good idea?
That was amazing. Like
Apart from the kid that broke his arm off a Ronaldo shot, but then again he got a signed shirt and a signed football. So,
but the Real Madrid Bournemouth game it's like them Bournemouth players, when they got told they play in Real Madrid, must have thought to themselves, what, we're going to play Cristiano Ronaldo, like,
yeah.
Wow. And it's like, you want to give him that moment, like, listen, you're going to play Real Madrid, like, and it's not like be prepared for it or make sure you beat him or something like that. It's just that you're going to get that moment. You're going to get that moment because as difficult as it sounds, Bournemouth might never play in the Champions League. And it's one of these things that's going to be difficult for a club like that to do that. But to get that moment of playing, and to get Ronaldo is another thing, that you're getting one of the greatest players to ever play the game to come to Bournemouth and play. And again, it's like watching the players as well. A lot of people in this country now and might never get to see Cristiano Ronaldo play again. So for him to come here and play was like, and to play at a club like Bournemouth was like, wow. And he gave everyone an opportunity as well. And obviously it was financially, it was massive benefit to the club as well.
I was gonna say you wouldn't see Cristiano Ronaldo in Bournemouth even if he was going into hiding. But
that's it. Like stuff like that, when you hear stuff like that, and you think Bournemouth got around, you want that game to be televised because you kind of think to yourself, the Bournemouth players deserve it, the Bournemouth fans deserve it, and I want to kind of see how their reaction is to all the players, and that's the kind of games you want to see televised. It's like when you get these Bayern Munich v Chelsea friendly games. Like if it was a round of 16 in the European Cup, I would love to watch it. Yeah. But it's like, is it really worth it? And it's that kind of thing. Like it's the balance, really.
I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting that you mentioned in terms of what a game like playing against a professional club, what it would mean to a grassroots club. From our research, the ethos of class on grass seems to very much be about developing young players and at the same time helping them enjoy football. Do you think the importance of enjoying football has been lost due to a kind of win at all cost mentality that's been fostered in recent years?
Massively. It's one of these things where I think at a lot of the grassroots levels now, you can still enjoy it a bit, but you can even see the competitive nature there. Like, it's like, we want to beat you, we want to do this. But it's like now you see a lot of the clubs in the Premier League, like Swansea were above expectations and they were doing unbelievable. But I know they're finding it difficult times now, even though it is, but they won a League Cup a few years ago. You should just enjoy it now. Enjoy the time you're having. But it's like a lot of clubs are just like, with those 3-4 games, you could be in there, and it's like, once you finish the season and you finish 10th or 11th, then you can enjoy it. Like, yeah, we finished 10th or 11th, we do well. But if you halfway through a season and you're 10th and you might be 20 points away from relegation, you'll still think, some clubs will still think in their heads, what if we get dragged back in? It's like that. And the players that do enjoy playing, it's a bit like Wayne Rooney. Wayne Rooney is a perfect example. When Wayne Rooney enjoys playing the game, he's on fire and he's on the ball and he's unbelievable. But when he has pressure on his shoulders and it's one of these things where there's a lot of media backing into him and stuff like that, and he's like one of these things where that's when he kind of loses it. So you got to kind of enjoy it. And Barcelona, that 2009 team, enjoyed playing football more than anyone. They were like enjoying every single pass, you know what I mean? And it was like they were unbelievably enjoying it. They were like passing on. And even Bayern Munich now, like the teams that do enjoy it do have more success. And the only reason they have more success is because they're playing a formation or with the manager. They're in a way where they can enjoy it as well. So you got to find the right balance between the manager and the players to get you to enjoy the football. Like the Chelsea lads are loving it now as well. I know they're in a title race and kind of in it, but they do look like they're enjoying the football a lot more under Mourinho than they did under the managers.
You were interviewed recently by Celtic Football Club, and it was a very good interview, by the way. And you got to coach there and that Premier League side, Everton, among others. Can you tell us a bit about those experiences, about the experiences that you've had coaching at certain clubs?
Well, Celtic was cold. That was cold. I've never been somewhere so cold in my life. That was like, and they were up near the mountains as well in Scotland, the training ground, and that was like, I remember that for the rest of my life.
That's coming from a northerner as well. It's cold.
It was unbelievably cold. But yeah, like, especially with the Celtic thing, the Celtic thing was brilliant. Like, to be invited to Scotland and to do there, and then Neil Lennon kind of invited us into his press conference afterwards to watch how he dealt with the media and stuff like that. And stuff like that to pick up, it's like, I'm only 21, and to kind of see that kind of stuff, it's like, wow, it's like, I was watching how he was with us afterwards, and in the media, he was a completely different character. He was like, holding back, and he was like, yeah. And I was like, I was thinking he was so open to us earlier, and it's like, he wanted me to kind of see that personality, and how you kind of has to change when you deal with the media. Yeah. With Everton, Everton was one of the best times I've ever had in my life, because the thing with Everton was the session I did at Everton was great, and I had a really good time doing it. But after the session, I went in the dressing room, and the banter at Everton is unreal. I've never been to a place in my life where the banter, especially under Martinez now, it's like even like Jagielka was basically just like slating Baines and saying that you have to win the World Cup for us and stuff like that. Yeah, and it was like the banter was on such a level that, now you can see why, with how they're playing the way they're playing, and it was like unreal. But coaching clubs like that, and then the manager kind of had a look at my session at Everton and kind of had a few words with me afterwards on how I did my session and stuff like that. And to kind of have someone like that watching it, it's pressure as well. But it's like, I was always told, just do what you normally do. Don't try to go out of your way. And before I was thinking I'm going to go out of my way, but it's one of these things, I decided not to. I just decided to do what I do. And one of the things with me was I wanted positive and negative feedback. I wanted negative things I want to improve on. I need to know. And Roberto was great in that. He told me a lot of stuff. I need to do well and stuff I need to improve on and stuff like that. So he was great like that. But them two experiences are unbelievable.
That's great stuff. Samir Sawney from Motivate Sports and Fitness has asked via WhatsApp, what is the biggest achievement or most memorable moment so far in your journey?
The most memorable probably is the Sir Alex Ferguson letter. And the only reason that's memorable is because before that I always had this kind of block in my head that no one's ever tried this. Maybe there's down the line, maybe it might be fine what I'm doing now, but down the line there might be something that might go wrong. And that letter just basically stated that if you want to go manage at the high level and you want to manage Manchester United one day, just go for it. Because, and it just basically said what you've achieved now is great, but don't stop, just carry on going. And that was like the last kick I needed. That was like, it was really like a kick up the butt and just like, go on, go for it now. And I think after that letter, like if I do get anything or if anything like goes wrong or anything like in the session that's not right or something like that, I just kind of think back to that letter and think, I'm not going to stop. There's no point me kind of thinking, feeling sorry for myself or thinking anything like, oh, I don't belong here, this session's a bit too much for me or anything like that. I'm just going to carry on going for it.
What did the letter actually say? That's a bit about that for those who don't know.
Well, the letter basically said, well done on your achievements of becoming a level 3 football coach. It never ceases to amaze me the enthusiasm people have in the game, and I've heard that you have big dreams and big goals in coaching, and if you want them big dreams and big goals, then just go for them. Don't stop, because it's an achievement what you've already done. Just carry on going for it. And then to see at the bottom that it was signed by Alex Ferguson was like, and this was last March as well, it was just like he was retiring at the end of that year. So it's like just to have time to do something like that just shows the character of the man as well. And there's a lot of people that, non-league managers that I've chatted to that are managing the conference, some of them as well. If they've ever tried to get in contact with him, he's always contacted them back and kind of given them advice. And I think when someone's so high up and so successful in what he does, for someone to be like that and come back and reach out to people and wish them well on what they've done and stuff like that, it kind of gives that person confidence as well to carry on. And it gave me major confidence. That was like that mental block that I had just completely went after that letter.
That's great to hear. That is fantastic.
It was unbelievable.
That is fantastic to hear. I mean, that actually relates quite well into our next question, because obviously you mentioned about the letter from Sir Alex being inspiring. You were part of something called the Road to Inspire Tour 2014. Can you tell us a bit about that?
The Road to Inspire Tour was basically, there's a lad called Ismail Hussein who does Arabic calligraphy. And he wanted to kind of go on this tour. He's young as well, he's about 19 I think, and he kind of wanted to go on this tour to inspire a lot more people. And so they decided to put a Road to Inspire tour on around 7 cities, and it's basically just getting people that could inspire other young generations. And I went on in the sport kind of terms and on the football kind of terms, and there was other people, there was fashion bloggers and rap artists and all sorts. So it was a really eye-opening experience, because you're around so many inspirational people, and it makes you realise that, and you hear about other people's journeys as well, and that kind of, it just makes you kind of think that you're not the only one that was in a difficult boat kind of thing. Other people had it hard as well, and they kind of came through it. So I think that was like, that kind of opened me up to other things as well, and it kind of gave other, because a lot of the people weren't into sport that came onto this tour. They weren't really into the sport, but my aim and goal was to kind of let them know about football and let them know about sport and kind of get them into it. And afterwards, a lot of people were asking us to come back and put on tournaments and put on sessions. So that was a great success, and it's thanks to that Road to Inspire team for getting me down onto that tour, and it's an unbelievable experience as well. You get to go around the country as well, which wasn't bad as well.
It's always good. It's like, I've never been there before. Oh, we're going there. Ah, cool. You've been fortunate enough to meet and talk with a lot of current players. Do you think footballers should be role models, and do you think they are good role models?
They should be, yeah. And it goes back to the bit we were laughing about, the money. The money does play a major part. If you're on that, if anyone in this room was on that much money, and there was someone looking up to you, and you were on that much money, you would want to be a role model for them. And it's actually, I think it's your right to be. You have to be a role model. It's one of these things when you're so much in the media spotlight, and footballers are not blind. They can see that so many kids love them around the world and around the country, and they got to be kind of open to that as well. I can understand it can be hard at times, and I completely understand that with a lot of the players, but it can't be one of these things where you can kind of just close the door on it. That won't work, and it's a lot. They're out there. There are some great. Like Cristiano Ronaldo is a perfect example. I think Cristiano Ronaldo is one of probably the best role models I've ever seen. For a player to show it, you can comes across all the hard work he's done to get to the position where he is, and I think a lot of players should try to get that kind of out as well. And with Cristiano, another thing is links with charity and all sorts of stuff. And if anyone does ever try to get in contact with him, and if it ever has happened, he kind of gives money back. And in grassroots football, he invests, and also people with terminal illnesses and stuff that need have operations and stuff like that. Yeah, exactly. And he's always open hand to that as well, and to donate your golden boot to countries that are struggling with war and stuff for medical attention and stuff. That's a golden boot's a massive thing. I know Ronaldo might win quite a lot, but it's still a massive thing. So like, there are great role models out there, and I think being on so much money, you gotta be as well. But it's one of those things, like, some are really open and they really want to be a role model, and they really want to be out there, and there's others that don't want to be. But you gotta they've got to find the balance. Because you're a footballer, you got to find the balance and kind of know what kind of role model you got to be. And it's not only in football, it's in any sport, to be fair. Because it's a great position to have. And I think a lot of footballers forget that. Like, the position they have is a great position to have. Like, any young kid would love that position. And I think if it's good for it would be good for them to be remembered by, I don't know, probably the FA to do something, or the PFA or the Premier League, or anyone to just do something to just kind of always remind them that they are a major part. But it's one of these things where there will be some that will forget, and some that will kind of be fed up with it, as they say. Yeah. But they've got to be good role models.
Let's have a little bit of fun. Let's do a bit of word association. So basically, with this, I want the first word or phrase that comes to mind when I throw something at you. We'll just start with the FA.
Give us a World Cup.
FIFA.
Actually, World Cup comes to my FIFA World Cup, so I'll say World Cup. Sepp Blatter actually comes to mind as well. That's one of the reasons.
I was going to say, don't get me started on Blatter. I better not. UEFA.
Champions League.
Youth.
Development that's like one of the major things. Like I think you've got to develop young players.
Football.
I'll be honest with you. That's how much I love football. It's actually love that comes to mind.
Greg Dyke. One word or phrase that comes to mind when you hear Greg Dyke.
Wow. That's actually it. I can't.
Speechless.
Yeah, probably that as well.
Role model.
Say Ronaldo at the moment because of some of the stuff he's done is like unbelievable.
Clark Carlisle.
What a nice guy. He's an unbelievably nice guy. He's awesome.
Grassroots.
Funding, need more money into grassroots football.
I will second that motion. Manager.
Difficult.
Coach.
Probably the best. One of the things with me is I think that's the best position to be in because you're not in the media spotlight and you're doing what you love as well. Mm-hmm. So with coaches, what I always think with it is the best position in football is a football coach because you're not known to the world. You're not out there. You can't live your life, and you're coaching some great footballers as well at times.
Wages.
Too high.
I think one of the words from one of the previous guests, John Sitton, was astronomical. I think was one of them. So it kind of ties nicely into that. Rio Ferdinand.
Rio Ferdinand is the banter is unreal. I'd say banter with Ferdinand is. If you have jokes with Ferdinand, you're not going to win. You know you're going to lose, but it's like he puts the challenge out there. Like let's have it. Let's see what you got. Yeah. So the banter, Ferdinand, I said banter.
Manchester United.
Please win.
I love it. Wayne Rooney.
Actually, Fenerbahce, the hat trick, that's the first thing. Like if someone ever wants anything ask me about Wayne Rooney, that's like the first thing that kind of comes to my head is like that. How to introduce yourself to the world, like a big club to score a hat trick in there. It's like, what is it? Because I remember, I think it's Clive Tinsley who was commentating on it, and he said something like, he was saying at the time England's most expensive young player in England's biggest club in England's Europe's biggest competition, and I was like, that just sums it up basically.
Tilsley's a great commentator, I've got to say, I do like him. David Moyes.
Give him time.
I will definitely second that notion. Not just as a Liverpool supporter, but I do second that notion.
The only reason I said that is because it's such a difficult thing being a manager. But to be a manager at Manchester United must be, and to follow Sir Alex Ferguson, it's like I know a lot of United fans say Moyes out, and it's something that I guess really
hashtag.
Everyone's saying Moyes out, but it's one of these things that let's give him 2 years and let's see, because if he does go now and say he becomes successful anywhere else, he'll always look back and probably have that excuse of saying Manchester United giving me time. And one of the things I get with United are that type of club as well. They want to and they should learn from other clubs as well. A bit with Liverpool with Brendan Rodgers, when they did appoint him, they decided they were going to give him time.
Oh yeah.
And the last season they were 7th, wasn't it? 7th.
Yeah, there were a lot of the Brendan Rodgers out brigade, and it's like, no.
And look at him now. So it's basically you got to let him win over his players. And with United, a lot of the players are reaching the end of their careers as well. So you got to kind of give him that chance to develop the team. So I'd probably say give him time.
That's a good shout. England.
It's going to be a hard summer.
Inspiration.
Inspiration. I'd probably say David Weir, the Paralympic. To win 4 to 5 medals at the Paralympic Games is that's wow, that's unbelievable. So I'd probably say David Weir.
Premier League.
Premier League, competitive. Unbelievably competitive.
Sir Alex Ferguson.
Probably the best, I'd say. The best manager. going back on the history of managers is, you see the Matt Busbys and Bill Shankleys and what they built, but when you build 4 to 5 different teams, it's just mind-blowing. To tell people you have to go out the door and then to invite people back in that you don't know how good they're going to be, but you think you can develop them, is unbelievable. To have people like Cantona and then on to Ronaldo, Beckham, and all these players is like, you got to be really strong mentally to do something like that. Because to say to people like Beckham, see you later, I don't need you anymore, and then to have Ronaldo come in, and then it's like, we understand it now, Ronaldo, wow, but at the time when Beckham went, every United fan was like, Alex, what are you doing? But you got to be mentally strong. You know you're going to be against it at times. You know the fans might sometimes question you. I know towards the end of his career, nobody was going to question him, but at the start, everyone was going to. So, and the period he had where he knew he was developing the class of 92 and he knew he had youngsters in the back. And there's a funny story about when he came into the club and he said, how many lads are we getting from Manchester or from the local area? And they said, we get about 5, 6. And he said, all right. And he said, what about Manchester City? And they said, oh, they get about 23, 24. But they've got a bigger scouting system. And for him, that was the first thing. He was like, I'm going to change the full scouting system. I'm going to get more scouts in. So instead of going out there where United players wanted him to spend loads of get more players in or something like that, it was like, no, I'm going to spend money lower down and get the scouting system and the academy right. And United have produced unbelievable academy players, and even Adnan Januzaj now, it's like that all goes back to what Sir Alex started back then. So I'd probably say the best, to be fair.
Good shout. Cristiano Ronaldo.
I'd want to meet Ronaldo one day. Ronaldo for me is like you see a player that started off, and I can remember a lot of people said one trick pony. Oh, it's just,
which he was in the beginning.
Yeah, but it does tricks, and you think to yourself, okay, it does tricks. And then he goes and develops a bit more. And when you're into coaching and you kind of, like I go back and look at it now and I kind of see him develop each season in, and you think to yourself, wow, how hard you must have worked. Must have been unbelievable. So probably hard working. He's like probably one of the most hard working footballers.
Real Madrid.
I don't want to say being a United fan, but probably the biggest attraction in the world as a football club. I think what the Madrid's pull in the world is unbelievable. Like they could go to any country and get any young player and give them that any young player in every young country wants to dream of playing for Real Madrid. And Barcelona have been successful and Man United have been successful, but they'll never have that pull of Real Madrid. And I think going back to Di Stefano and all these great players winning the European Cups, that's probably one of the reasons it happened. So I'll say the biggest club probably.
Class on grass.
Class and grass, inspire. I think we want to inspire people. That's basically, and get people. Class and grass for me is just football. That's what I would look at it. It's a name. It's one of the things where I had to use a name to get in there, because one of the things I couldn't just basically go in there and say I do football. So the class and grass, I would just say football, because football is what class and grass is.
Good shout. Disability.
Difficult, but I'd say difficult, but it's not the end of the road. It's not basically one of the things that, yeah, it's difficult, but you got to kind of look over the difficulty sometimes. Sometimes you got to kind of look past it, and this is the people that are disabled and people that are wheelchair bound. You got to kind of look past the difficulty of it, and you got to kind of beat that obstacle. Like, because I always said to everyone, like, there'll always be obstacles in front of you, but it's always about the obstacles that you see, and that's really the ones that matter. So if you can kind of look past the difficulty of it, you can do anything really.
That's a great shout. I like that. As a mentality, that is fantastic. And a final word, impossible.
Nothing, I would say. And one of the things that Sir Alex Ferguson banner kind of thing just sums it up as well. Impossible is nothing really. If you want somewhere and you want to be somewhere, because it's one of these things, like if you have a dream and you have a goal and you want to reach that dream or goal, if you go for it and you never get there, okay, at least you're going for it. But imagine if you never went for it and you never got there. It's like, that's a killer as well. Because it would probably still take you the same time to sometimes get there, because you might never get there. But at least you were going for it. And I think that's one of the things. Impossible, there's probably nothing. Sohail Rehman. Football coaching. Hip hop. Pharrell, Happy. can't pick a song, but I'd say probably Jay-Z, Reasonable Doubt there. Pizza. Chicken and chips, I'll be honest with you. A 2-piece chicken and chips, and fucking it doesn't go that bad. For lunch. I'd probably say the heyday sneakers that I got. Trainers. Fridays, all the Fridays are just insane. Match of the day, I'm obviously going to say, but A League of Their Own, is it? With James Corden. Sir Calvin Harris, probably. Jay-Z. Cristiano Ronaldo. My age. Sir Alex. Zidane was unreal. Zidane was like, everything Zidane did was golden. Like, I can remember him playing United a couple of times and I was thinking, wow. David Villa since the Paralympics. I think he's a massive inspiration to me. To do what he did was unbelievable. Determined.
State of the game is our next segment. In December 2013, we saw 7 managers lose their jobs in 8 days. What is your view on the managerial merry-go-round?
It's daft. It's unbelievable. Especially the ones that get down to the end of the season as well. How you can sack a manager that has 4 to 5 games, like the Norwich thing.
The Houghton thing, yeah, that, oh.
That's like, it's the reason is, no one's going to try as hard as him if they come in because he went through all that pain. So he's going through all that pain, so he wants to come out of it and look good, and he obviously wants his team to win. So you're going to put a guy in there that's probably going to say to you, and no one's going to go in there unless they promise the job for a long time. So if you give someone a job to say, okay, you can manage next season as well, if they go down, they're going to say it's not my fault, it was the other manager's fault. And it's like, and I think it's one of these things where the Premier League has to, or the FA has to kind of step in and do something. I don't know what they could possibly do, but there should be something they can do, because what will start happening is it'll get to a point where, especially with the big clubs, like the top 4 clubs, like I think Martinez will be all right, because obviously he just came out of Everton. But with Wenger, I know he's dropped to 5th, but a lot of managers saying, oh, Wenger's out and he's not spending money, this and that. You got to understand with Arsene Wenger, he's got a young team as well, and you can see him growing as well. Like this season, it was the first time where they really took the Premier League and said we're going to win it, and that's what they kind of went on for most of the season like that. And then it kind of fell off the wheels. But it's one of these things that Wenger's going to learn from that. The players are going to learn from that. Let him go again. And these Arsenal fans that sometimes, like Piers Morgan,
yeah, he's another one. Piers Morgan, if he had a brain, he'd be out playing with it. In regards to football.
Yeah, but to say Wenger out is like pointless. So I think the Premier League and FA got to step in to the point where it's one of these things that, I know there's the LMA, the League Managers Association, but their hands are mostly tied most of the time by the higher FA, the Premier League. Yeah. So it's like one of these things, like it's got to happen, like to the point where it's a bit like, what's the Wiggins manager's name? Is it Rosler?
Yeah, Rosler at the moment.
Rosler went Europe and he managed and he did everything. He went to Mold and he went all over, and then he came back at Brentford, wasn't he? Yeah. Brentford. So he didn't go high straight away. He came back at Brentford, took his budget, and then got the Wigan job. Yeah, it's like he knew what he was doing, but sometimes some managers that do get sacked don't kind of get told that, or like that's the best way for you to go about it. And the Premier League should do something where they could kind of inform these managers that it's going to be hard at the top level straight away. Like Tim Sherwood is a perfect example. I can see exactly what he's trying to do at the club and what he's trying to do. But to be told like you're not going to manage us next year, well that's the rumours. To be told that is like, what's the point in him doing it if he's going to kind of lose? And one of the things with him is it's like at the start of the season when he was kind of doing well and he was up there, all the Spurs fans were like, yeah, keep him in, we want him in. And then they were like, he's not showing passion. And
it's interesting you mentioned Tim Sherwood. What do you think about short-term contracts then? Because he was only given an 18-month contract, so that leads me to believe that Daniel Levy always had in mind that he was going to get rid of him in the summer. Because if you sign someone to a short-term contract, you don't have to pay him that much. But what do you think about
exactly. Good and bad. One of the things with short-term contracts is it's more of a here, prove yourself to us. It can be given that way. With some players, it does get given that way. some players get sign-up fees and get a 1-year contract because they're going to prove us to us for 12 months. Man United do it a lot with all the players now. Ferdinand and Everett, they get 12-month rolling contracts if the club wants to give it.
Yeah.
So it's like, prove yourself. So in that kind of way, it can be good. But it's like when you give them, like with the David Moyes thing, the 7-year contract, I can understand why they did it as well. It's a great thing to do it as well because it kind of gives him that time. But sometimes managers can take the time for granted because they know they're there for 7 years. So, or that's the length of the contract. So
Would you say with the same could be said for Newcastle and Pardew as well with the 8-year contract?
exactly, it's one of these things where I don't know how you can make. I would say a long-term contract should be 4 years max. To give 7 and 8 years out is like saying I want you to probably build 2 teams.
Yeah.
And it's like saying here's your chance, you got to build 2 teams, and it's like. It's hard enough job building one successful team, and to be David Moyes and be told that you probably have to build 2.
Yeah.
If they kind of went into Moyes and said, "Here's a 2-year contract, let's see how you, or 3-year contract, let's see how you do," and then it would have been all right. I know he's struggling this season, but they might have let him go for another season. Now United, if they do sell it, if they do sack him, they've got to pay him quite a lot of money to sack him as well, and that's what it falls back to as well. Even Wenger at Arsenal with the short-term contracts, it kind of backfire. Wenger's a great manager, and if Arsenal ever lose him, there'll be clubs lining up for him.
Oh, definitely.
Exactly, so it kind of backfires as well when clubs give short-term contracts or like don't extend it quick enough or anything like that. So it's one of these things where there's never really a balance, but you got to kind of know the person you're giving the contract to as well. Like if I had Jose Mourinho, any club, I would give him a long-term contract because Mourinho's this type of guy. Like Chelsea, especially with the Chelsea thing, like I can't really see him conquer anything else. I know he'll probably always want the United thing and he'll always want to do that, but if he doesn't get the United thing, there's nothing else he can probably conquer now.
But Mourinho's one of them ones. I mean, just coming back to that comment about you were giving him a long-term contract. The thing is, the thing with me, I see Mourinho as a short-term manager because at the end of the day, he doesn't stay at a club for longer than 3 years. Yeah. Since he's left Porto, is at what, Chelsea in his first stint, he was there a couple of years, Madrid couple of years, Inter a couple of years. He doesn't seem to. So with that kind of in mind, is it him doing that? Is that the kind of manager who it's almost pointless giving a long-term contract to? Yeah. Or is it one of them ones where he's just kind of thinking, yeah, I'm the special one and I'm going to have the power rather than letting the club have the power to get rid of him?
It's a bit of him having the power as well, but it's one of these things where with Mourinho is, I always say I gave him a long-term contract to Chelsea now is because I feel he's kind of done it all. I don't see him going back to Spain. I don't see him going back to Italy. So it's kind of, if he wants to carry on, if he said to the board, I want to carry on managing a club football, then if it's Chelsea, then I don't think he'll be anywhere else. I can't really see him go anywhere else as well. He's kind of, so at Chelsea I wouldn't at the other clubs in Madrid, and that would have been a massive risk if they did give him a massive long term. I'm just saying at Chelsea now he's the perfect example for that. But with the bigger coaches some of them don't want long term contracts. You could probably, Guardiola always had this thing where he would decide if he could carry on every year, and I think that'll always happen. With the bigger coaches, that'll always be. I think there are certain coaches, David Moyes probably, that wants to, even Brendan Rodgers at Liverpool, you can kind of see he's a long-term plan. So there are certain coaches, but Pellegrini, I don't know how long it'll last. And so it depends on who your manager is as well. But there's it's Jurgen Klopp at Borussia Dortmund. He's kind of built a system there as well. So it's one of these things that if he was ever offered a long-term contract as a manager, he'd want to build a really good system as well. So it's kind of personality as well. With Mourinho, if I agree, if you do give him a long-term contract and money runs out from the club, it'll affect Mourinho badly because Mourinho is an academy kind of. Yeah,
he's one of them ones. He wants to spend money wherever he goes. He wants to spend a lot.
The club he's at currently will spend money, and if Abramovich isn't there for the long run, he might as well keep a manager that's. Because one of the things about Mourinho is there's a lot of managers that spend money pointless. But Jose Mourinho, whoever he buys, there's a massive reason behind it. Matic now at Chelsea looks a really strong player though.
That's a funny kind of example considering they let him go as a makeweight in the David Luiz deal and then bring him back for 20 million. Yeah, that's real fiscal sense.
Chelsea never really probably wanted to bring him back, but Mourinho did. And that's the thing with Mourinho. Mourinho knows what he wants. When letting Mata go to Man United, I thought it was one of the most...
That I still see that as crazy because Mata could hit the ground running next season.
With Jose Mourinho is I don't care if you hit the ground running next season. I want a player that's going to play that number 10 role, but that's going to track back. And that's why Mourinho wanted Rooney. He wanted Rooney. Might have played him in number 9 or number 10, but he knew he's a Mourinho kind of player where he'd run back, he'd cover up for people. And Oscar tries to do quite a lot of that. But now Oscar's getting tired as well, and you kind of see where Mourinho started dropping him as well. So if you don't work for Mourinho, he kind of doesn't want you in the system. Like even with the lad he bought from Basel, Salah. He's another kind of guy that, but he works. That's the thing with Mourinho. He'll give you the tactics. He'll give you, and you don't have to be the most talented player in the world. But as long as you work, like I've never seen Eden Hazard run back as much as I have this season and cover up for the wing back. Like I've never seen that happen in my life. But that's the kind of mentality Mourinho has. And Mata seems to me to be like a lazy number 10. Like he floats around in the number 10 position, plays his passes. And I think Mourinho just kind of got that vibe. Whereas I don't want you. But there's other managers that kind of like that kind of stuff, like the way Man City play, the style Man City play. They have their powerhouses, but then they have a few lazy players going around like Nasri Silva, that kind of play they bait. So it's all about what the manager likes. But with Jose, I think it's one of these things. If you don't work, he doesn't want you in the team. And that's basically what it is.
Oh, I mean, speaking of working and kind of and working together. Take it kind of away. It's kind of. Do you think the FA and the Premier League need to work together more to help the game, especially at grassroots level, which has recently seen some of its funding cut by Sport England?
Massively, I think the thing is the FA have to reach out to the Premier League a bit more. The thing with the Premier League is in the box seat, as you must say. They know the driving force behind it.
Yeah, they're the cash cows. So
they know, like, we're bringing everything in, we're bringing the media and everything. So it's like the Premier League will always be stubborn, and the only reason they will be is because they've kind of brought the media into it. So the FA kind of has to reach out, and the problem with a lot of governing bodies of countries is they don't like reaching out. That reach out doesn't happen. But it's like the FA, like sometimes you get the FA Cup fixtures and the Premier League fixtures, and you think to yourself, what's going on? Like, we used to have an FA Cup weekend and nothing else. And now the Premier League are saying, no, we're still going to carry on with our games. And it's like, why can't you just come together and just have an FA Cup weekend like we used to back in the day?
Exactly. I used to love that. The whole Saturday
and a proper FA Cup build-up. But it's like, even petty little things like that is started to change. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if, like, you get replays and the Premier League actually argues with the FA about replays and stuff like that. But it's like, replays one of the things, like gigs against that goal against Arsenal last time. Like, you know what I mean? That's one of the things. Like, it's them kind of stuff is unbelievable. Like, you want to see games like that, and you want them to be broadcasted live with no other game clashing. But with the FA Cup, sometimes you'll have a 1:00 game, and sometimes they'll run a bit into it on Sky, and then you have the FA Cup game. It's like,
well, we had that when we were down on Wembley Way for Man City v Stoke a few years ago. I think it was back in 2011, when there was Man United Blackburn as a crucial league game. At the same time, it's like, wait, hold on, why not let the FA Cup have its special moment? I mean,
and I felt sorry for City, because City, that was the first cup in 30 years or something like that, and it was like, okay.
It was almost kind of a sideshow.
I don't like Man City, but that's their moment. Like, let them have their moment. The fact that they reached that level. Like, Arsenal haven't won a cup in 8 years, and now they're in the cup final. Let them have that moment, I would think. Like, let them have that weekend.
Oh, they want that moment. They're desperate for it.
Yeah, but I'm thinking to myself now, just imagine there's a crucial Premier League, because there could be a massive Premier League game on around the top four, top of the league, or even in the relegation battle around there. And if that does happen, then you're like, you don't really want that. But it's like in Spain, Real Madrid have been given the weekend off to prepare for Bayern Munich. Now, in the Premier League and the FA would never, like, that Premier League and UEFA, would never come to, like, that sort of, like, but Spain kind of, and then we think to ourselves, why do Spanish teams do well in Europe, or why do German teams do well in Europe? Because the league association understands that their team could probably win the competition, so it'd be a big thing for them, because it's massively hard to play a game on a weekend and then go straight in. And I'm just saying this from playing like local games and playing midweek games, but to play in the Champions League semi-final on a Wednesday night, I know you're playing in a Premier League crucial game as well. It's like,
well, I suppose Tottenham have found that out this season with their Europa League exertions. I personally, with the amateur league side, Ibis FC that I play for, we play 3 games in 8 days, and it's eventually that's going to catch up at some point. But it's difficult to do. I mean, organisationally, logistically it's difficult to do, but physically as well.
No, and that's where the League Association here could learn from the Spanish team, because I think it's the Spanish FA that can basically says that, okay, they're not going to play, they're going to play in the European Cup, and they kind of make the final decision on that.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's a massive statement, like, Barca will play, Atletico Madrid will play, but Real won't play this weekend. And the title race there is so close. There are a lot of fans that probably want all three to play, and for them not to play is like, wow, but it's like we want our team to win the European Cup and bring it back to Spain. And it's like you don't hear this complaining as well from Barcelona, or why are Real not playing, that kind of thing. Completely understandable, because if they were in the same position, they'd want exactly the same thing. So I think they do have to come together on a lot of things.
Yeah.
But will they ever? I'm not sure.
We got a question from James Doyle via email. There's a couple. There's a couple that you kind of already answered, but there's one. There's also one that we'll answer in another segment. But James Doyle via email has said, "What's good, guys? I have a few questions for Sohail. Number one, who were the players he idolised when growing up?" Which you've kind of gone into in part earlier. Number two, which footballer currently playing does he think is a great role model to kids? Which you've kind of answered in part. Number three, what do you think of what's happening at Man United? And number four, how can England win a World Cup?
3 and 4. Well, 3. It's difficult, but it's basically, like I said, it's one of these things where it's going to be a massive change. Sir Alex Ferguson was a man manager. He had his coaches coached. He managed the players. He was tactically into the game. And then you have David Moyes, who wants to be on the coaching field. So it's a massive change. And if you're not going to give time a change, then it's not going to happen. It could be anyone. And there's rumours, I know, Louis van Gaal and all this kind of talk of all these managers. If that does ever happen, you'll think to yourself, Van Gaal's not going to stay he's not going to stay there for 10, 20 years. Whereas if Moyes just say he gets going and he does do well, he might be in it for the long run. So you got to kind of, I think with Manchester United, one of the things is the expectations at the start of the season were like, some fans are like, okay, we're going to have to settling in period. We're going to know it's going to be difficult. But that Swansea result, which was a false result, I think it was 4-0 on the opening day, that kind of gave every United fan hope that we're going to win the league again. And I think if United found it kind of difficult in that kind of games, they could have kind of figured out that it's going to be a difficult season. But for them to beat Swansea 4-0, even the players started thinking, we just carry on as normal.
Yeah.
And I think it was that was where it all went wrong, really. If they did have a tougher game, and it was Swansea that really didn't give them a game on that day. It wasn't like United were brilliant.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that was one of the things where, of course, you want to win a game by 4-5-0, but it was just completely wrong time for United, because after that game, it went like as if, okay, we're going to win the league, and everyone thought that, and probably the players came across that as well. But it's one of the things where you've got to work with the Champions League thing. They struggled last year, and not that 2 years ago in the group stages and stuff. So they've kind of been working on that, and you could see that this year, how far they got to the quarterfinals. You could see, even though they had a bad night in Olympiacos to come back and win, you could kind of see they were working on it. But to kind of just think you're going to win the Premier League you can't go into that. It's just, and I think that false result kind of gives United players more than anything like, oh, this is our league to lose kind of thing. And when you get that mentality, it's just dangerous.
I mean, with you being and also there was the England question as well. How can England win a World Cup?
How can England win a World Cup?
Yeah, coming from your perspective as a coach, how can
England win a World Cup? Don't try to. It's one of these things. Don't try to adapt your game to other teams and other countries. Let your players play, be free and play. So the Gerrards, ask him up, like he's been playing defensive mid this season, play him in that position, play a Wilshere next to him, play these Ross Barkleys and Raheem Sterlings, and let him be free. Even Wayne Rooney, let him be free. And I think that's the only way England are ever going to win a World Cup, is if they kind of let the players enjoy the World Cup. I think it's one of these things where England go into World Cups, and if they do get a lead or they do get a goal, they kind of back off, and everyone has to be in the position marking, and it's all like everyone has to know what they have to do. Rooney, like, don't go too far ahead, come back as well. And another thing is some of the big players have to turn up. I think a lot of England fans will say, and a lot of people in this country will say, there's been too many World Cups where the big players haven't turned up. And I understand it's difficult, but kind of don't give them an excuse. A lot of England managers have given England players an excuse to not turn up, and like play them in a different system and play them in a way where they didn't like you or anything like that. Kind of play them in the positions they want to play, the positions they do well, and kind of say, it's on you now to go do your best. And winning the World Cup is luck as well. So, like that Lampard goal, if that ever, if that ever existed, then you never know what would happen. But it's that luck is a massive part in it as well. But if you get a back four and a goalkeeper that are out there, they know what they're doing, and they tactically aware of what they're doing and everything, then some of the players in front, they have a holding midfielder, but some of them let them be a bit free, let them do what they're good at. Like Raheem Sterling, like I wouldn't want to see a World Cup where Raheem Sterling is running back to left back and defending. And
I mean, he'll work hard, but
he'll work hard, yeah, but let him have his moment, let him go forward and do what he does with Suarez. And basically going back to the Liverpool thing, that's why they're playing so good, because the top four have been told, you're free, play how you play. And I think that's what England got to do. They've got to see the players that they can just free up and just kind of let them be free. But I don't think I'm not going to say it's going to win the World Cup if we do that. I'm just saying it's probably the best way to go about it now.
Yeah. You mentioned in terms of having luck, and you mentioned the Frank Lampard goal against Germany from back in 2010. What is your view on video technology? Was the introduction of goal line technology needed? And if yes, is there another part of the game that could make use of the technology in your view?
Especially when I think it was needed, especially the goal line technology. All these because scoring a goal is a major part of the game.
Oh yeah, goals win games. I can't remember who said that.
Exactly, and if you've scored a goal and it doesn't get given, then you've done everything right, and it is a bad decision. So it's one of these things that had to be cleared up. So goal line, I don't know about the other decisions. I think the offsides, I know a lot of people complain about it, but sometimes we actually get a buzz off it. Someone getting given onside, or someone sometimes it depends. If you're watching a different game, I know if it's your team, you kind of get a bit thingy, but if you're watching another team and he kind of gets onside and offside, and you kind of want to go back and look at it as well, but it's one of these things that it's it makes you, like when you're watching it on the ball as well, like, oh, I think he was onside, or I think he was offside. And if the game got to a point where it kept being stopped, I think that just ruined it. Like, I watch rugby sometimes, and I'm sorry, but when they go back to the umpire and all that kind of stuff, like, it's like, wow, like it's such a long stop. And it's like, you don't want it to become like, even like American football or anything like that, where there's so much stoppage in it, because football's a game where you want everyone to try non-stop for 90 minutes. And with the goal line technology, it's perfect, because if it is a goal or if it isn't a goal, it's only going to take them like, what does it take them, a second or something?
Yeah, I think it's up to 5, so it's pretty quick. It's got the thing on his watch.
That's like perfect. If there was stuff that came out that was really quick, then obviously it would be good to have a look at. But none of this video replay where the referee or whoever, or the fourth official goes down. And I agree with the fourth official giving his view to the ref on certain stuff, like sometimes if the referee's not sure, but not kind of a thing whereas in they all have a look at the camera and they're kind of, that's just like going a bit too far. But I think that's one of the things where if that does happen, that kind of replay looking, I think it'll happen in UEFA before anything. They've already got 2 fans standing on the side.
I love it. Jesse Fizzle behind the camera was like, yes, we do, because he's actually said that, them extra officials are basically paid spectators. But would you agree?
I completely agree with that, because basically, if they're going to stand behind there, let them make a decision. Give them a chance to make a decision. Give them their own whistle, to be fair. Give them the chance to make a decision. To give them a little black stick that they press a button and it goes to the referee. Just imagine that button's not working. I don't even know that button's working. I don't think it's ever worked. I just think it's one of them black kind of torch kind of things that they just hold or something.
It's like, stop now.
But it's like kind of give them that decision. And like the referee's like, he doesn't like. It's like the referee's not being told like they're there. It's like they're there, ref. Go have a chat with them, ask him. And the ref's like, no, he'll ask his linesman or anything, but I'm just kind of playing, and they're getting cold as well out there as well.
You mentioned about referees, and what is your view on diving? Do you see it as a tactical part of the game? Would playing for a foul be something you would endorse for your players to do, or would you just prefer they try to stay on their feet? Because you've heard the controversy about Matt Jarvis very recently in the Arsenal-West Ham game, and he came out in the papers. For me, he's an idiot. He shouldn't have said anything. I'm coming out, I'm too honest. I should have went down. Now refs are going to expect him to go down. What do you think about that? And also diving. Is it tactical? Would you endorse it, or?
Well, my job is pretty wrong. He should have never done that. That was probably one of the most serious things to do. And probably manager will probably tell him that as well. And it's one of these things. If he does ever get fouled in the box in these next few games, it's a big decision for the club as well. And for him to come out and say that, it's like not the right thing to say. As for diving, there's always a limit. You don't obviously like people playing for a foul, but if there is contact, and it is quite big contact, and it is quite major contact, and if the player because sometimes player does have a right to go down, and depending on how much contact. I'm not saying that you just fall to the ground, but it's like if someone stuck the leg out and it is a foul and you know it's a foul, then and he's clipped you, then you can go down. But it's the way they go down as well. There's a certain style to go down, and if you're going down, or if you're off balance and you're already going down, then just go down. If you're gonna fall flat on your face, fall flat on your face.
Yeah.
It's not one of these things to kind of like dive back into it, and it's like a lot of players. There are a lot of coaches, I will say, kind of like, oh, you can win a foul against him, he's a bit on the back foot. And you can kind of see it, that some players go into it. Like, I look at one of the great players that doesn't do it, that I don't think does it quite a lot, is Morales Everton. He goes past people so many times and has the chance to go down and never goes down. I'm thinking to myself, sometimes you do kind of have to say to him that if you're getting clipped that bad, kind of go down sometimes, because it'll help the club get a decision, the team get a decision.
So it's a tactical thing.
It is a tactical thing, but there's a limit to it.
Okay.
So it's not like Suarez, where I'm sorry, but Suarez at times does. I understand he gets clipped and I understand he gets tackled a lot of the times, but with him it's one of these things where he kind of has seen a challenge come and kind of reads it and thinks the leg is going to come out, but you can't do that all the time. And to carry on doing it, if you know that it's not working, or it's somewhat like I've done it wrong a few times in a game, or it's not working, you kind of just give up on it for a while. But for him to carry on doing it is like a bit like, wow. But with Morales, it's the other side where his manager might want him to try it a few times and he's not doing it.
Bear in mind, Cristiano Ronaldo used to do that quite a lot as well. He would go, oh my God, he's gone down. But I've seen Berbatov do it as well, as Jesse Fizzle will know. I've been bringing this example up for 4 years. But FA Kenny Dalglish's first game back in charge, FA Cup third round, Berbatov. Barely any contact and he went down. What do you?
A dive like that's not right. Like that is just wow. Like how can you give it? Like, and the referee should give a decision as well for that. But it's like,
one person in this room actually advocated that decision and said it was the right decision. But okay, there was contact, but barely any. But anyway,
a dive like that I can understand. But there are sometimes when you think, because you probably watch your team sometimes and think to yourself, there's major contact there. Yeah. I can't believe he didn't go down. And there are sometimes that happens, but it's like
I've seen with Rooney before, where it's like he's been clattered but not gone down.
But it's Iniesta in the Clasico recently when he won the penalty. Now that was like a bit like to me like he knew the legs were there, but it was like kind of jumping into him, and so the referee's got to kind of.
That was when Ramos got sent off. Wasn't it?
And that's the referee's got to kind of judge that as well. And then there's the Pepe Neymar thing. A lot of people saying, a lot of people saying, no, this and that, and I'm thinking to myself, if he did clip you, he clipped you, but you could have gone around and probably scored past the goalkeeper. Do you rather want to celebrate a goal or let Leo Messi score a penalty? You got to be. That's a good point. So it's about the player as well and the player's mentality as well. But the more skill is one of these things where the players that dive are mostly skillful players, and you think to yourself, why? And people think, oh, they dive this and that. But they do skills that beat people, and defenders get offended by them skills, so decide to kick them, and that does happen. So it's like,
for that.
Yeah, so it's like one of these things where with Suarez, I understand that he dives a lot and does fall down sometimes easy, but he's megging every single player he comes up against. So there's like that thing where they are trying to clip him and hurt him, because no one's going to be happy with being megged. No player's going to be like, okay, that's fine. You're going to try to kick him back next time. So it's like the balance you got to kind of find.
I personally don't mind being nutmegged as long as that player doesn't get past me. If he nutmegs me and it goes out for a throw, and I don't so much mind that, because it's well, you nutmegged me, but you didn't beat me. Exactly. That would be my mentality on it. But then there are a lot of players who have big egos and will take it personally, and it's like, oh, you want to nutmeg me? You're getting clattered next.
Yeah, exactly. Or even once you megged him, I'll clatter him. Like it's like, even though you have a defender behind that's going to clearly clear the ball out, it's like you don't need to do that. But it's the egos, and like skillful players play to it. So like. Oh yeah. Suarez would probably look at some players and think, all right, he thinks he's the best defender in the world. I'm going to meg him a few times and see what he thinks about that. Yeah. And then he'll kind of think to himself, all right. So some defenders are like, but like it's a bit like Ronaldo. Ronaldo was trying to step over right now against anyone. And he'll go down easy as well at times. But it's like, I'm going to try it and I'm going to make PK, or I'm going to make someone think to themselves. Yeah. So it's about the balance really with diving.
I suppose it's one of them ones in terms of kind of dancing past players. It's like Suarez a couple of years ago when he just danced through the Man United defence and then Cal stole the goal. It was like, dude, come on, lad, come on, give him, just dubious goals panel, overrule it, give him the goal.
Couch shots look like the ball over the line. I kind of got
Yeah, it's like what Nugent did to Defoe. It's like, oh, come on, you are ribbing me. And it was all over the back pages. Nugent scores. It's like, nah, that's not scoring. But I said earlier, it doesn't matter how they go in. We've got another video question from co-host G-Man.
If you could change any aspect of the game, what would it be and why?
any aspect of the game. Just thinking this would be hard. Academies, I think all the clubs should give young players a chance from their own academy. Because you got to understand, no one's going to know the history or fear for the club more than these academy kids. So when they kind of just get brushed from the carpet or get released and stuff like that, and they don't kind of really get given their chance, it's kind of think to yourself that another player that you buy for 10, 20 million, he might be the greatest player in the world, he's not going to try as hard as this player is because he'll become a fan of the team. And that's what happens with academy players. So a lot of academy players should be given the chance. And there are some, Everton, Josh Stones, Ross Barkley now, it's like, wow. And you see how hard Stones tries and you see how good Barkley is and you think to yourself, wow. And a lot of other clubs try. Arsene Wenger adapted later on in his career, like now with Jack Wilshere and Kieran Gibbs. So it's like you got to kind of find the balance. Southampton is their academy.
Southampton are churning them out, man. They have been for a while, but they are really churning.
And they always give the academy players a chance. It's not one of these things where they kind of brushed away and kind of told, no, go to a lower league club or anything like that. Like even Lallana, Bale, Chamberlain, like everyone's given the chance. And then if they do get a big move, they get a big move. But Southampton gave them that chance. And I think we go back to Chelsea here. Like with Mourinho, that's one of his major flaws. Like if he could bring an academy if he could bring 3 or 4 academy players into his team now, you think to yourself, wow, well done. He's finally done it. But it's something he doesn't do, and it's like it seems to people are watching that he doesn't care about the academy, which is kind of a really bad way to go about it. So I think probably investing in the academy, giving them the chance.
I mean, in terms of that, I want to come back to that, especially because you mentioned Chelsea, and I've been extremely critical of Chelsea over the past few years in terms of Frank Arneson's comments about a year or two ago about basically Chelsea have ruined their own youth development system. I would say, especially with British youth players, I mean, you look at Josh McEachran. I mean, he played against Man City a couple of years ago and looked fantastic. And then he just gets farmed out on loan to Bolton. Yeah, go to Bolton. I think Barnsley took him for a bit as well, and now he's at Middlesbrough, and he's just going around, but he's not getting his chance. And looking at Chelsea, even with Lukaku, who do you think's to blame in terms of not? So specifically with Chelsea, who do you think's to blame in terms of not giving young players, and especially academy players more specifically, not giving them a chance? Who do you think is to blame? Is it Abramovich? Is it the club in general? Is it Mourinho? Is it?
I wouldn't say Mourinho because once Mourinho went, they did it as well. So I'd probably say it's Abramovich wants success so quickly. So it feeds off to other people, directors, chief executives, scouts, anyone. So because he wants success so quickly, he's not going to wait. He wants European Cups, he wants Champions Leagues, he wants Premier Leagues, he wants everything.
So the short-termism from him kind of permeates the club.
It kind of goes into everyone around the club. So it's like one of these things where if I was an academy player at Chelsea, I'd probably think to myself, I'm not going to get a chance here. That's what I would think to myself. And when McEachran, he's a great talent, an unbelievable talent. Like he looks like a real player, but it's like Sturridge is a perfect example as well. Sturridge, they bought him from Manchester City.
Was it 10 million in that deal? That surprised me.
And they bought him from Manchester City because they'd seen what he did in the academy at City and also a few starts in the first team as well. So they bought him. But then to throw him in the academy again, and then kind of send him out on loan here and there, it's like, there's no way to do that. But I'd say Abramovich, and the only reason, because one of the things with Abramovich, when you do, and we go back onto the British players here, with Abramovich, he pays, was it 28 million for Lukaku?
I think so, yeah.
28 million for Lukaku, and he went and bought a Dutch lad, Van Ginkel.
Oh, yeah, was it Van Ginkel or Van Arnholt? Yeah, Van Ginkel, yeah.
I spent so much money on him. Now, I'm thinking to myself, sometimes why don't you just hold back the money at times and give an English or a British player a chance? Because with Chelsea, I can't really see, off the top of my head, I can't really see a British player, young player coming through. even in goal, they got the Atletico Madrid keeper.
Thibaut Courtois, yeah.
Who's, for me, is probably... He could probably pull check out the team right now.
Yeah. He might as well just stay at Atletico.
Yeah. And for him to be on loan at Atletico, like now with the basic thing that, he might not be able to play the European Cups. Like he worked to get there with the team. And if Chelsea didn't want him, then it's the perfect time to play against him and kind of say, this is what I can do.
Yeah.
So, but I don't understand that as well. But I'd say it's Abramovich wanting success so quickly that you can never want success straight away. It's never going to work. I think Liverpool kind of accepted that, and they kind of thought, it's not going to work. We're not going to get very quick. Let's just try to build again. And they built again. And I think Arsene Wenger's always accepted that as well. I think Man City have invested a lot of money in the academy. They're building an academy complex. But with Man City, the manager they've got is a manager in Spain that used to go back to his academy now and again as well. So they've got the right man in place, and the chief executives and a bit of the technical directors and all these people that they've got in place there are people that were at Barcelona before, so they kind of know the academy feel. That's where City have kind of brought the money side of into it, but brought the academy into it as well, and they want to kind of gel them both together. Do you think
the Man City that £200 million youth training complex is going to be successful, considering the way they've got their recent success by spending a shed load of money? Do you think that youth complex is potentially going to end up as a waste of money? Or?
Depending on, it's like the lads, the guys that came from Barcelona. Obviously they knew what they were doing in Barcelona. They were building academies and so forth. So it's one of these things where it's about who they have in place as well. If City ever sacked Pellegrini and bought in a manager that would want to buy them, because the problem with City is everyone knows they've got money. Yeah. And when someone knows you've got money, they don't care about the academy, they want to buy money. Yeah. So I think with City appointing the people they've appointed at the top from Barcelona and stuff, it's because they want that academy feel. They've also got Vieira, I think, in an academy role. So they kind of, and they've got they've got this elite development squad, haven't they?
Yeah, like Vieira's heading up. They've got Tixi Bergerstrand and guys like that. Yeah.
So they've got elite development set up. So they're kind of trying to, and they also release a lot of press releases on it. So it's kind of letting, if ever another manager came to Man City, know that, listen, we are about the academy. I couldn't say what. If it stays with Pellegrini there, then maybe. I think the academy players might come in there, but he's not going to stay there forever. So it's one of these things. The City, the problem is the appointment. Like Mancini didn't look like the type of guy to me that was going to stick around for his academy. He looked like he wanted it bad. So it's about the appointment really as well.
Do you think financial fair play is a good idea, firstly? And also, do you think it can work in practice as opposed to just theory? And a third part to that question, how do you think, and can it change the way football is governed financially at the moment?
Firstly, I think it's a good idea. I think it is a good idea. I think that to give everyone the fair ground to play on is probably the best way to go about it. So I do think it's a good idea. How will it work? I think it's difficult because one of the things is, if football is one of these kind of sports where certain clubs have a bigger pull on certain parts of the world, and it's like, of course there's going to be people in the world, in that part of the country, that own certain businesses and are millionaires that want to invest in that club or want to be part of that club somehow. So in that way, it's kind of, does the club have a right? Because of how they reached out to them people. How did they reach out? Probably by winning, and probably by the Premier League, so that kind of thing. So I don't think it'll ever work though. The only reason I don't think it'll ever work is because you've got Abramovich at Chelsea, you've got Sheikh Mansour at Manchester City. Now the only thing with this is the football players right now at this age, and the football kids that want to play football growing up, they know there's a lot of wages. The wages are big in football. Everyone knows this. It's obvious. So it's one of these things where it's never going to be fair, because players are always going to want big money, and that's the way. And it's just changed completely. The mentality has changed. So if you're trying to cut back on wages, it's like it's a bit like Chelsea now. Like, they'll get rid of Mata because obviously you don't play Mourinho's style. But if there wasn't anything to do with a bit of the financial fair play, Chelsea would have probably kept Mata and kept the wages higher. But because of the financial fair play and obviously Mata not being happy, they kind of thought, okay, we win both ways, we'll kind of get rid of him as well. So it's that kind of thing as well. But then people like Man City at the moment, the way Man City is going about it, it looks to me as if they're not bothered. They couldn't care less about.
Well, with losing 140 million a year for 2 years, then they're barely making 30. So
Why? And you think about it yourself. Why are Man City not bothered if it's such a big thing? It's probably because they know nothing's going to happen, and they probably kind of got that from someone at UEFA or someone at FIFA or wherever, and they've kind of been told that, listen, or even the Premier League, like, nothing's going to happen.
But do you think Platini made a mistake coming out last year and saying that in relation to financial fair play, we can't throw teams out of tournaments? Do you think he made a mistake there?
I think if something like that happened, then it's perfect for financial fair play.
Yeah, I think
if they said, listen, Manchester City, your wage cap is this is the limit you have. Okay, and understand the needs that some clubs have a bigger pull, so give them a bit more wage cap because of the pull they have and stuff. So it's kind of like adjusting and kind of finding that balance with certain clubs. But it's not like saying to Real Madrid, you have the same wage cap as Arsenal. That's not going to work. Real Madrid have such a massive pull on Arsenal. So you got to kind of understand their kind of way as well. But it's not like, it's like City are like going just drastically going up and up and up and up. And they kind of, Platini came out and said, we're not going to throw them out of the cup. And to be fair, City are probably thinking, the Premier League need us. The Champions League are starting to need us now because we're starting to make a name for ourselves in the Champions League. But we're getting more fans around the world as well, so it's benefiting us. And when the UEFA president's coming out and saying that he's not going to chuck teams out of the competition, what have we got to be scared of? And it's that kind of mentality they're going into it. As with the Barcelona thing is like they got because of the Neymar transfer deal, and they kind of got that.
Yeah. They've got now an embargo. Yeah, they've got an embargo for this for two windows. Yeah,
that's a certain statement. That's like a statement out there. It's kind of here, have that, and it's like now certain people when they do deal with players will think about that and think, well, went on there and this and that. So if you do something like that, because I think basically Barcelona will need to spend money. I know I don't know if they're going to appeal it or anything, or they might try to get it reduced, but Barcelona will need to buy players because that team's not going to last forever. Yeah. So for them to have that, it's making the other clubs think that's kind of gone in. But for the president of UEFA to kind of come out and say, I'm not going to throw my... The Champions League is where each and every single player wants to play football. That's the level. If you kick a player out of that level, he might think, all right, I'll take a bit of a... I might go on a bit less because I want to play that.
Well, it'd be a huge financial
exactly. And if a player wants to play football and because of his wages or because of some of the players' wages in the cup, they're not in the competition, they might actually think to themselves, if they really are there to play football, they might think to themselves, okay, I want to play football. I'll reduce my wages or something like that. And you'll kind of see the true colours of certain players and stuff like that. So it is some of that. Platini should have not came out and said it was one of these things that as soon as he said that, the financial fair play went in the bin for me. He was like, it's not going to happen now.
The future and other disciplines. What does the future hold for Sohail Rehman, and what are your long-term goals?
At the moment, the thing is, with only being 21, I want to gain as much experience as I can around football coaching. So one of the things I want to do is I want to go around to different countries and see the way they coach, the styles they coach. And that's one of the things with America. I know you can go out there for 6 weeks and do a lot of coaching and stuff like that. So that's kind of stuff I want to do in lots of different countries and just kind of see the way they coach and the styles they brought up to play. So probably because I know if you go into the money, if I want to be a manager or a coach and I go start applying for jobs and trying to become a coach, it's one of these things that at 21 or 22, there's going to be half of the squad's going to be older than me. And most of the squad probably, and it's one of these things that sometimes you can't kind of get, they're not going to take you seriously at all. And you got to kind of build yourself to have the experience, whereas you've got that experience and you can draw back to that experience and kind of say, all right, this is what happened with me, so I can kind of adjust to the time. So for the next 10, 11 years, I just want to gain experience. But my long-term goals, I want to manage the Football League one day, the Premier League one day. Like our life, I said I never wanted to manage England in my life. Like that would be a lie. Like I'd want to do something like that. And it's one of these things that I know it's going to be difficult, and I know it might never ever happen. But at least I'm doing what I love whilst I'm chasing that goal. Yeah. And that's the way I look at it. But it's not one of these things where I'm just going to, even if I'm 40, 50, I'm going to just stop chasing. I'm going to carry on going for it. Yeah. And if it never happens, it never happens. But if it does, that's great. But that is like one of my long-term goals. Like I want to I would love to manage the Football League one day. And it's one of these things, like someone said to me once, why football's not ready for you? Or something like that, he said to me. I was like, I'm not bothered. Like that doesn't concern me at all. Like I I want to go into football and I want to manage a football league or Premier League club one day, and that's my aim and that's my goal. And if it happens, brilliant. If it doesn't, at least I love what I'm doing. So
that's good. That's a great philosophy there. As well, then I'll drop in an OWR right here. I think it was Matt Hardy who said, "If you believe, you can achieve," and being strong mentally is very important. And it seems like you got those hallmarks. So what was it good to say? Back in March, we saw a Facebook post on the Class on Grass page about a meeting you had with someone by the name of Curtis Brown. Can you elaborate on what that was about?
It was about doing a book, which I kind of decided not to, because I understand that the journey's been inspirational and everything, but I'm only 21. And I looked back at it as thinking to myself that I don't want to obviously I want to share my journey, and it'll be a great way to share my journey, but I don't want to kind of go into it completely and just say, here's my story, and to people, because in a way people can't take you seriously as well like that. They think you're just doing it for just for that kind of stuff, or just going to, like, they wanted to include all the Everton and Celtic coaching as well, and I don't want everyone to really know about that, but I just want people to know more about basically on the philosophy and that I'm coaching football. So the Curtis Brown thing was more based on trying to just basically with the disability, saying he's a football coach, and just trying to kind of elaborate on that and just going into it. Whereas I just wanted it football coach at that time, and I want people to know me about the football coach as well. Obviously, I want to inspire more people, and I'll try to do it in other ways. And we're thinking of doing it. The BBC's been in contact to do a documentary and stuff like that. Like, that's fine. I don't mind doing that, but a book is just like, that's a step too far for me. And I was like, nah.
At least it's one of them ones where it's not kind of WWE style. I'll do a couple of books and just fill anything. Yeah, just do that. There was a time where they were just doing book deals randomly. The China, if only they knew. Kurt Angle, is true. It's like 2000, 2001. They were just releasing book after book after book after book, and it was okay, all right. It was a bit jarring. But you've recently met a lot of sporting celebrities, including Danny Cipriani most recently, Neil Lennon, and obviously countless others. Who has been the one who's made the most impact on you?
Most impact on me? That's difficult. I'd say Ross McCormack. All the reason I said Ross McCormack is because not much about the Ferguson letter or anything was out before in the media or anything, and I had a football tournament in Leeds. I got 16 teams in, I got trophies, I got medals, I got everything, and I wanted a player there. I wanted someone that could kind of present these trophies that I'd kind of done well and was in the game currently, and I found it really difficult to get in there. And this was without any media outlets doing anything. And there's a guy called Mick that got me in contact with Willie Irish, who runs the sports centre, and he basically just pitched it to Ross, and for Ross and Northern as well, but for them both to come down to a tournament that I thought to myself at the time, like, they basically just came down, and then after that they kind of got involved. I started asking me questions about football coaching and stuff like that, but for them to come down to that tournament is like, that's a major thing for me. Like, that was before any of the media outlets picked up on anything, and for them to attend and support my first tournament. And he also made a massive impact on me. One of the reasons was because he was really humble, and that was like my first time meeting a footballer as well, and he was really, really humble as well. And this was the guy that was top scorer in the championship at the time. He was flying. He was probably the hot property in the championship. Even right now he probably is, and a lot of teams want him. And for him to be so down to earth at the time and be so nice was like, and that's why it made a major impact on me, because I thought to myself, this is before anything about, all he knew was I was doing a football tournament and I'm a wheelchair bound coach, and he was like, yeah, I'll come. And that's all he knew. He didn't know anything else, nothing about Sir Alex's letter and anything. So that's why it made the biggest impact on me, was because he just came out of the goodness of his heart. So
no, that's great. Nah, that's fantastic.
That's you know this Ross McCormack stuff. You should get it in and I'll send him it. Like, in his own little segment. 100% it'll be buzzing.
Oddly enough, actually, we have a Final video question from our co-host, the G-Man.
If football didn't exist, what career path would you have chosen?
That's a big question.
That's a good question. If football didn't exist, well, I was pushed into computers. I hated computers, so that was like I was like, you go work in IT, you'll do well in IT, and that was like the goal. So I kind of hated that. So, but I was doing well at it, so I think that'd probably be what I'd carry on doing, even though I hated it. I'll admit I absolutely hated it, but because I was doing well in it, it'd probably be something I'd carry on doing it. So probably I'd say computers and IT.
Yeah. All right. What legacy would you like to leave on football and the world?
Just basically one of these things where anyone can be involved in any sport they love, and that's how I look at it. If you love football or you love any sport and you want to be involved in it, you can be involved in it. Don't think to yourself it's one of these things where there's different roles in sports, and I never really realised this. There's the admin roles, development, football coaching, and there's so many sports science, and there's so many different roles. So you can be involved in a sport you want to be involved in. Don't ever think to yourself that that's the end of it. So I'd probably say just kind of just letting people know that I'd never give up and just carry on going for it.
That's a good shout. Any last words of wisdom?
Basically, never give up. Impossible is nothing, and that's how I live by every day now. Like that, my life is going to carry on that kind of thing. Whereas if someone says to me, like if I have kids that I've seen some of the Everton and Celtic stuff and some of the pictures of my United players, and they'll say to me, "Oh, you're being there, this and that. Would you ever want to manage there?" And I'll be like, "Yeah, I don't want to manage there every day." And that's like my kind of mentality. Like impossible is nothing. And yeah, it'll be difficult, and yeah, there'll be hard times, but you just got to go for it. Because just imagine you lived your life and you never went for what you wanted to go for. That's a killer. I think that would be a killer. And that's how I would look at it. So impossible is nothing really.
I like that. What a way. What a final statement. It's one of them ones where Sohail, it's been an absolute pleasure sitting with you tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure. And you know what, yeah, another edition of Pitch Talk Meets is in the can. We have thoroughly enjoyed it tonight with, as said at the beginning, a truly inspirational individual, Mr. Sohail Rehman. It's one of them ones. Remember, you can find him www.classongrass.com, at Class on Grass on Twitter as well, and at Sohail Rehman on Twitter as well. You can find Sohail personally too. It's one of them. It's been another very intriguing instalment of Pitch Talk Meets. And you know, on behalf of myself, Straight Shooting LJA, the G-Man, and Jezzy Fizzle, we'd like to say, remember, you can join the revolution. www.pitch-talk.com is the official website. Facebook.com/pitchtalk. Become a fan, become a friend, become a member of the group. Join the footballing revolution we're working so hard to create. MySpace.com/pitchtalk, pitchtalk.blogspot.com or .co.uk, whichever. Facebook, we're there. Twitter, we're there too. At Pitch Talk on Twitter. Tweet with us, follow us, see what we're up to. And of course, youtube.com/Pitch Talk, which is where we host the live shows every Monday as well. But you know what, it is one of them was, I've been Straight Shooting LJA, and on behalf of the G-Man and Jezzy Fizzle, we'd like to say thank you very much for joining us for another installment of Pitch Talk Meets.